Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 861, Tribute Then. For an Invincible Force. Chapter 861, Tribute Then. For an Invincible Force. How could this be? In the blink of an eye, the shark ancestor discovered that every single treasure ground and locked door within the colossal shark race had been forcefully opened up by a mysterious power. As though they weren't under any restrictions, all the treasures within flew out on their own. That calm water surface began to move a little. One after another, light spots rose from the depths of the ocean and came up, densely packed together. When the shark ancestor caught sight of these light spots, his face changed. These are Shenyang pills. When Ling Wuwei saw these, he too was equally stumped. He hadn't expected for these treasures to come popping up by themselves. He then looked over at that figure floating up in the void with that long white robe that was fluttering in the air. That calm expression was unchanged, as though everything that was happening right now was within his expectations. Shark ancestor, you're really quite the dishonest man, aren't you? When Lin Fan caught sight of these light spots, his lips involuntarily curled into a smirk. The heart of the shark ancestor began to rumble as a flame of rage started burning up. Are you bent on leaving my entire race with no way out of this? The voice of the shark ancestor was turning coarse. He hadn't expected that this human would do this at all. This was just forcefully pillaging all the riches of the colossal shark race. Hue, Lin Fan chuckled out, well, you're looking at what's going on yourself, right? Do you need to ask me? Lin Fan laughed out. If he hadn't done this on his own, he wouldn't have known how dishonest this shark ancestor was. There were obviously 30 trillion Shenyang pills here. To think that the shark ancestor would lie to him. This was way too scammy. Countless light spots bolted up into the sky. Lin Fan swept his robes and swallowed all of them up. The dense sky of light spots now started converging before flying off toward Lin Fan. 1 trillion, 2 trillion, 3 trillion. The endless amount of Shenyang pills came down like stars right now, and were all kept by Lin Fan in his storage. Lin Fan was exhilarated in his heart right now. Honestly, the best way of accumulating Shenyang pills was through unethical means. If he had to depend on himself to produce this many Shenyang pills, that would undoubtedly be just a fool's dream. With all of these Shenyang pills, Lin Fan could activate precious treasure descents from the heavens and cause the strength of the Xuanwang world to be raised as a whole once again. Within the Xuanwang world, Lin Fan's boundless voice boomed out. Everyone in Glory Sect raised their heads to look over. Precious treasures are going to start descending from the heavens. All of you shall have to rely on your own affinity and destinies. PSHEW. The disciples of Glory Sect turned into a series of light beams and streaked out of Glory Sect. Boom! The void of Xuanwang world was suddenly shrouded by rainbow-colored beams of light. All of the Shenyang pills that were reaped in were exploding out continuously before turning into a dense, thick amount of spirit chi that was then absorbed by the system. Like shooting stars scattering all around the entire Xuanwang world, these light spots that contained treasures shot down into the world. Countless new secret grounds appeared and were hidden within mountains and rivers. The locations of the treasure drops were all random. For anyone to be able to find them, it all depended entirely on affinity. Lin Fan's consciousness was spread out across the entire place as he grinned. This precious treasure descends from the heavens was extraordinary indeed. Among these precious treasures, there were elixirs and miraculous pills, Dao weapons, and even utmost treasures. Within these secret grounds, there were even heritages of extremely powerful beings. While they were only the legacy of divine celestial cultivation state beings, this should be more than enough for the masses of the Xuanwang world. In fact, there were even some secret grounds where legacies of divine celestial level 10, eternal god state beings could be found. This was something that completely made the 10 trillion Shenyang pills spent worthwhile in Lin Fan's opinion. Accursed mother * Sea King Human King, you're cutting off any route left for the colossal shark race to walk on in the future. The shark ancestor roared over this. His face had turned extremely grim and scary as well. He had finally understood. The Mother *Sea King Human King had had no intentions of letting off the colossal shark race at all. That's right. The moment you decided to side with the ancient race, there was no longer a need for the colossal shark race to continue existing. Lin Fan said. Damn it, UFC king bastard. Suddenly, the shark ancestor howled out and burst forth furiously, go to hell. The stance of the shark ancestor was extremely imposing. Every single move he made was even more ferocious. It was as though he was bent on chewing Lin Fan to death. Lin Fan gripped his knuckles, HMPH. Watch my fist. Blood-bursting fist of the North Star. While the shark ancestor was a divine celestial level 10 state powerful being, his strength was far stronger than any average divine celestial level 10 state beings. With a flip of his hands, countless mystic skills of martial arts were sent bolting forth. There were images of dragons, sharks, tigers, a myriad of transformations as the mystic arts channeled. The shark ancestor could be considered as a powerful being that had trodden over all of ancient times. Therefore, his powers were naturally profound. When he deployed them, there was an earth-shattering impact to be seen. If it were any ordinary powerful beings caught up in his hands, the only thing that awaited them was death. At this moment, the shark ancestors had truly been angered by Lin Fan thoroughly. While he knew that he wasn't a match for the Mother *Sea King Human King, there was no intentions of the Mother *Sea King Human King to let the colossal shark race go at all from the start. Since that was the case, he could only give it a dying shot. Bam! Countless mystic skills burst forth from the shark ancestor. However, Lin Fan was only casually throwing out punches left and right in return. Bam! Bam! Fresh blood sprayed all over as the skies exploded, and the shark head of the shark ancestor was left oozing with blood. Arg hhhhhhhhhhhhhh. A tragic cry rang out as the shark ancestor barked in rage, damn it. God damn it, Mother *Sea King Human King. You're going to have a horrible death. Lin Fan gripped his knuckles. When he punched out these specially tailored gloves on his hands, the impact was truly outrageous. Firm and steady impacts. Shark ancestor, just come forth with your true form and allow yours truly to slice away those heaven fins of yours. You guys of the colossal shark race have eaten up quite a number of spirit race beings. Right now, yours truly is making the preparations to invite the spirit race beings for a great heaven fins feast. We're just waiting to see if you're going to accommodate along. Lin Fan chuckled out as though he had just said something extremely casual. The heart of the shark ancestor skipped a beat. He had already witnessed the outcome of the shark god. His heaven fins were sliced off extremely tragically. And at this moment, the eyes of the Mother *Sea King Human King were glaring straight at him. The meaning that was revealed through that gaze of the Mother *Sea King Human King was extremely obvious. The Mother *Sea King Human King clearly wanted to sever his heaven fins as well. No, absolutely no way, he was the shark ancestor of the colossal shark race. Go to hell, the shark ancestor howled out as that menacing-looking shark head roared out endlessly. Mother *Sea King Human King. Even though this old one here isn't your match, you can dream on about having it easy as well. Tribute. Boom. A thick beam of light shot up into the sky and pierced the heavens with the shark ancestor in the middle of it all. Holy FCK, this shark ancestor is quite something. He knows how to make tributes as well. Lin Fan was startled before chuckling out. Wasn't this Mother *CKER quite the clown? At this moment, dark clouds filled the sky with a momentous feeling that was descending and pushing down from the heavens. When the hundreds of beings from the spirit race felt this aura, their faces changed all of a sudden. They could feel an extremely frightening aura that was channeling up into the void. This is not good. The shark ancestor is making a tribute. Mother *Sea King Human King. I'll have you dead. Even if the entire colossal shark race has to perish today, I'm going to drag you down to hell with us. Sacrifice the bloodline of your ancestor here along with every single living being associated with this bloodline. The shark ancestor screamed out. This was quite the tribute he was making here. Using his bloodline as a basis, this meant that he was sacrificing every single being of the colossal shark race that had ever existed. The amount of power that could be exchanged for this was unusually horrifying. Please descend forth, invincible existence. I'm willing to sacrifice everything to have this Mother *Sea King Human King before me killed. The eyes of the shark ancestor were bloodshot red and were filled with an endless amount of hatred. Shing! All of a sudden, a bright beam of light descended. The ancient saint's sacrificial altar began to tremble. Ding! There is a powerful being sacrificing everything in exchange for an invincible force to be summoned forth. Please arrange and see to it. Lin Fan was stunned. He then shrugged his head. Wasn't this just talking about him? Since that's the case, alright then. Let yours truly come down upon the world in exchange then. Lin Fan accepted it in order to make things difficult. Chapter 862, Angered to Death. Chapter 862, Angered to Death. The power was getting stronger by the second as the bloodline of the shark ancestor burst forth from within his body. A long, illusory figure of the colossal shark bloodline appeared and rumbled while roaring. On top of this bloodline were many long threads that were connected into the depths of the void. These were the branches of the bloodline. Since the shark ancestor was the old master of the colossal shark race, he was naturally the origin of the bloodline as well. At this moment, there was something strange that was going on in countless places in the world. The entire colossal shark race had occupied this entire ocean region. At some places, there were colossal sharks that were committing evil deeds somewhere. When they looked at how terrified the weak little living beings were cowering in their faces, they were naturally extremely excited in their hearts. But all of a sudden, all these colossal shark race beings began to wail out tragically before turning into specks of stardust that scattered out into the world. And just at this moment, all of those countless colossal sharks were turned into stardust, gushing forth toward the shark ancestor. Mother *C King Human King, even though you are formidable, your ancestor here is going to use up everything of the colossal shark race to come at your life. So what if you're extremely strong and capable? You will have to head down to the grave with us. At this moment, Lin Fan could only smile out calmly, unbothered about it in the least bit. The radiance around the ancient saint's sacrificial altar was getting brighter by the moment. This was because the object of the shark ancestor's sacrifice was simply way too huge. If this were in the past, given this amount of tribute from a single race, even an utmost being of the ancient race might have the possibility of descending personally in return for this. When the shark ancestor caught sight of these light spots, his eyes shone with a frenzied look. Utmost beings, you guys are untrustworthy. Now that he was forced to this extent, the shark ancestor had no other way out at all. Initially, he thought that by siding with the utmost beings of the ancient race, they would be able to skyrocket and gain the help of the ancient race. But, to think that the ancient race would leave them in the lurch even as things had come to this. His hatred was boundless right now. And, all of this hatred was focused onto Lin Fan's body. After all, this was all caused by the Mother *C King Human King. If not for the Mother *C King Human King, the colossal shark race would definitely be the top race out there on the day of the infinite worlds opening up. But right now, all of that was going to disappear along with the sands of time. Tribute. Descend upon us, invincible existence. The shark ancestor held out with a heart full of indignance. He could feel an extremely formidable power descending down from the unknowns. The lips of the shark ancestor curled into a bittersweet smile. Mother *C King Human King, your death has arrived. All of this was forced out by you. Can you feel this power? Can you feel this power that's as vast as the oceans? Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. The shark ancestor reared his head into the sky and laughed out manically. Boom. All of a sudden, a tear appeared out between the heaven and earth. The moment this tear appeared, a door that brought with it a heavenly might stood tall between the world. It was as though there was some mysterious and horrifying power hidden behind it. Grup. Ling Wuwei and the others gulped down their saliva nervously. They could feel that there was some extremely formidable power that was channeling behind those doors. This power was unmatched and brought shivers down their spines. When the shark ancestor felt this power that was seeping through, that dismal heart of his started going berserk. In the eyes of the shark ancestor, this formidable power was definitely more than enough to take down anything. Mother *C King Human King, your ancestor here wants you to die. I'll have you dead without even a burial ground. The shark ancestor screamed at the top of his lungs. Ling Wuwei and the others looked at Lin Fan, not knowing what they should do right now. They could clearly sense this power that was seeping through. It was indeed formidable and wasn't something that any ordinary person could handle at all. Ding. Tribute complete. Begin descent. Creak. All of a sudden, that unyielding stone gate started quaking violently. An extremely violent and monstrous power was slowly ripping forth from the gaps of the gate. Ha ha. Yes, come on out. Come on out. The shark ancestor had already sacrificed his bloodline. Therefore, his cultivation state was extremely unstable right now, and his body was beyond the point of fatigue. But, when he felt the power that was surging through, he could not help but struggle to keep up with his crazed laughter. And just at this moment, the shark ancestor suddenly realized that the mother *Sea King Human King before his face had disappeared. He started screaming in rage. Come on out, mother *Sea King Human King. You had better *Sea King get the *Sea King out now. The shark ancestor bellowed. He thought that the mother *Sea King Human King had made a run for it. If that were the case, everything he had done would be for naught. But, the feeling earlier on was really mysterious. He did not sense any bit of vibration through the void at all. How in the world did the mother *Sea King Human King disappear into thin air just like that? And at the same time, where did he disappear to? Shark ancestor. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded out into the ears of the shark ancestor. The shark ancestor was startled. He then laughed out with a deranged look on his face. Mother *Sea King Human King. Your death sentence has arrived. Initially, when the shark ancestor heard this voice, his entire body started trembling in excitement. But when he caught sight of the figure that stepped through those doors, he was completely dumbfounded. How is this possible? The shark ancestor was thoroughly dumbfounded. His heart was surging as though waves were crashing down on it at this very moment. All he could do was stand there blankly. How in the world was this possible? Ling Wuwei and all the hundreds of beings from the spirit race were equally frozen solid. That figure. Lin Fan shrugged his shoulders helplessly. Shark ancestor, actually, there's really nothing impossible about it. Shark ancestor, now that you've summoned out yours truly, is there anything you require? Lin Fan asked indifferently. However, he truly wanted to laugh out in his heart. The reason why the shark ancestor sacrificed everything was undoubtedly just to have him killed. But now that he himself was the one summoned by the tribute, this blow should be something that was practically impossible for the shark ancestor to swallow, right? Thud. Indeed, at this moment, the chest of the shark ancestor started pushing forth. As though he could not hold it in, he suddenly spat out an entire mouthful of old blood. How did this happen? The shark ancestor was on the brink of turning demented right now. What in the world was going on? He had sacrificed the entire colossal shark race in order to seek out the strongest powers in the world to kill this mother *Sea King Human King. But, to think that the mother *Sea King Human King would be the one to appear. This. Also, I actually forgot to tell you this, shark ancestor. But, everything you've sacrificed. They're all here with yours truly. Lin Fan was afraid that the shark ancestor could not handle everything right now. Hence, he had to say it slowly. The moment the shark ancestor heard these words, he spat out yet another mouthful of old blood. He raised a trembling finger and pointed it at Lin Fan. Oh gosh, don't get so worked up now, shark ancestor. Oh right, there's another thing that I've yet to tell you. Everything that you've been sacrificing has come to yours truly as well. And, yours truly is exactly the strongest existence you've summoned. The body of the shark ancestor wavered unsteadily. Right now, he was completely confounded as he tilted his head up and sprayed out mouthfuls of blood one after another. Alright, come and tell me then. What do you wish for me to do? Could it be that you hope for me to kill myself? Then, I've got to apologize. That is a request I cannot accede to. Well, I guess this sacrifice of yours has been made for nothing then. But, I'll have you know that you went through with this willingly, alright. There's no such thing as a refund or anything, okay. Lin Fan said out calmly. However, he did not know that every single word he said was just yet another blow to the shark ancestor. Thump. At this moment, the shark ancestor could no longer endure the blows as his blood boiled and shot right up into his head, causing the blood vessels in his brain to rupture, snuffing him out instantly. He was angered to death just like that. When Lin Fan caught sight of what happened, he could only sigh out helplessly, to think that it would have ended like this. That's way too fast, isn't it? Instantly, Lin Fan turned his head and looked at the vast ocean. From this day forth, the top 10 old ancient beast races would no longer have a colossal shark race. November LBJNN. Ling Wuwei and the others watched Lin Fan with their jaws agape. This blow was equally impactful to every single one of them. Chapter 863, The Most Extravagant Feast. Chapter 863, The Most Extravagant Feast. At this moment, the entire area fell silent. The gate had disappeared by now as well. In the end, the shark ancestor had not expected that this would be the result of the sacrifice. This was an empty sacrifice now. If he had known that this was the case, even if the shark ancestor wanted to fight with Lin Fan with his entire life, he wouldn't have made the tribute. A single mistake to regret for an entire lifetime. But right now, there was no longer any hope left. Looking at the corpse laying there, Lin Fan shook his head. A pity. This was a true pity. With the disappearance of his bloodline, the taste of his heaven fin feast would definitely change as well. But on second thought, the shark ancestor was already so old anyway. The shark fin must definitely be extremely old as well. Therefore, there was no guarantee of its taste. Since he worked himself to a rage and died just like that, let that be then. There was nothing to feel wasted about. With those dozens of shark fins earlier on, it would definitely be enough for the spirit race beings to have a good meal. He truly did not know what the taste would be like, and could not wait to head back to give it a try. Senior, Ling Wuwei and the others, who had been staring blankly in the space for a long time now, floated over and came before Lin Fan's face before greeting him respectfully. This battle had long shocked the bejabbers out of them. Strong, truly, incredibly strong. Now that the colossal shark race has been wiped out, the spirit race can be considered to be safe now. Where did you guys come from? Lin Fan smiled out calmly while placing his hands behind his back. It was as though everything that had happened earlier on was nothing but a small issue, and there was no need to make a fuss over it. Senior, we are disciples of the Spirit Heaven sect. It is a sect that was opened up by the spirit race. Ling Wuwei said. Lin Fan nodded his head. He wasn't all that familiar with this Spirit Heaven sect. Therefore, he garnered that it should be some small sect or something. Alright, now that everything has been settled, you guys are pretty much in luck. You're just in time to go have a taste of the shark fins. Lin Fan smiled while saying. Ling Wuwei was stunned, not understanding what Senior meant by that. Shark fin, could it be those fins of the heaven sharks? Ling Wuwei then exchanged glances with everyone around him with a look of disbelief on his face. Were they really going to eat the fins of heaven sharks? Since they came from a sect, they naturally knew of the wondrous effects of the heaven shark fins. And, the royalty of the colossal shark race were none other than the heaven sharks. They must have a certain amount of powers that would cause their bloodlines to turn thick enough and produce a pair of wing-like fins eventually. These fins possessed an incredible amount of power, and were full of nutrition. They were extremely beneficial to all living beings. However, this was a luxury product, and not something that one could eat as and when they would wish to. Every single heaven shark was an extremely formidable existence. Given their capabilities, they might not be able to eat it in their entire life. That was because even the lowest cultivation state of the heaven sharks was at the divine celestial level 8 state. For them to kill a divine celestial level 8 state colossal shark was definitely just a fool's dream. Eventually, everyone got a little excited. Having a taste of the heaven fins. Was this even something they could possibly even imagine? Even their grandmaster might not have had this good fortune. Within the city, Chicky stood on a pair of heaven fins and reared his head while crying out, "Kukkaku." That side, put it into the pot. That side, please hurry up with your speed a little. You're taking such a long time cutting up those fins. Hurry, hurry. Those little arsed kids there. What are you guys doing? Don't lick it with your tongue. Hurry up and go get some spices and stuff over. Is that pot boiling yet? What's up with this fire? Why is the temperature so low? Come, make way. Let your Chicky do it personally. Huff. Right now, Chicky was extremely busy. Initially, things were still manageable with a single pair of heaven fins. But to think that there would be 10s of them right now. This was making things quite difficult for him to handle. A single pair of fins was around 1,000 feet wide each, and required countless people to work on it together in order to cut it apart. This was simply way too slow. Chicky, is it done yet? Lin Fan appeared in the void and checked out the situation below. He discovered that all the spirit race beings in the entire city had gotten busy with it. But, these pairs of heaven fins were really way too huge. They were so huge that the city folks almost felt like breaking down from the hard work. A single heaven shark was around a few hundred feet in size. It was only normal that these wings were only thousands of feet in size as well. In fact, some of them even seemed a bit smaller. Old bro, all settled. When Chicky saw Lin Fan, he hopped up and down in excitement. What do you think? Lin Fan asked. Kukik koo. Chicky leapt onto Lin Fan's shoulder. He then looked at those people behind, spirit race beings who know how to cultivate. Yes, they're spirit race beings from outside. Lin Fan nodded his head, then waved his hands, everyone, please settle down. At this moment, Lin Fan's voice boomed out like the vast oceans and circulated around the city. All of the spirit race beings who were busy cutting the heaven fins looked up into the void at that figure. The colossal shark race has been wiped out by yours truly. From now on, there will be no colossal sharks appearing anymore. Lin Fan said. For the beings of the spirit race, this piece of news was heavenly. It was as though a nuclear warhead had been dropped into the middle of the ocean, causing a gigantic whirlpool to surge into the air along with its explosion. First came silence, and in the next moment, the entire area was filled with an eruption of cheers. All of these beings of the spirit race bore a euphoric look on their faces. Some of them broke into a dance jubilantly while others thumped at their own chests furiously. They were so emotional right now that some of them were even breaking out in tears. As for Little Stone, he was already reunited with his younger sister by now. Looking at the figure in the void, Little Stone could not contain his emotions. Too slow, way too slow, seems like I can only depend on myself then. Lin Fan looked at how all the gigantic heaven fins were not even close to being half done just yet, and felt a little impatient. God knew how long it would take by the time they were done with it. Lin Fan then stretched out his fingers, and those pair of fins flew up into the voids. Using his fingers, Lin Fan started shredding them. Tear, those sparkling shark fins were being shredded out layer by layer. Lin Fan then summoned out the heaven and earth smelt instantly. Using the heaven and earth smelt as a pot was definitely a steady method that wouldn't have any problems at all. As for Ling Wuwei and the others, the moment the heaven and earth smelt appeared, they let out shocked looks on their faces. The aura that was given off by the heaven and earth smelt was something that was extremely vicissitudinous and distant, evidently extraordinary. And, to think that Senior would be using it as a pot right now. They were so astounded that they were speechless right now. Rattling. This was just rattling their spirits. It wasn't long before those gigantic heaven fins were completely prepared successfully. November LBJNN. With a casual flick of his fingers, the connate element of water gushed out and entered the heaven and earth smelt. No matter what, these heaven fins were some precious treasures. The ingredients used for preparing them must naturally be good as well. The moment the connate element of water came forth, a thick and dense aura burst forth from it. This is the connate element of water. Ling Wuwei and the others were taken aback once more. Wasn't this way too extravagant? To think that he would use the connate element of water as ingredients. If anyone else were to catch wind of this, they would definitely puke out a mouthful of old blood. For the beings of the spirit race, everything that was going on right now was simply way too surreal. The colossal shark race was slaughtered, and their fins were used as food. And that was not all, as the ingredients for it even had the connate element of water. Even if one were to talk about the pot used, it was a supreme treasure. Everything that was laid out today was simply way too extravagant. After everything was prepared, Lin Fan gave it a light clap. With that, a ball of fire lit up. Connate element of fire. It was time for Ling Wuwei and everyone's jaws to drop wide open once more. This meal was way too extravagant. Creak, creak. It didn't take long for a thick surge of spirit chi to float out. The moment one sniffed it, they would feel invigorated instantly. As for those spirit race beings without any cultivation, all of them started transforming with a mere whiff of this. All the accumulated spirit chi in their bodies went berserk at this very moment. Chapter 864, I'll go along with you guys. Chapter 864, I'll go along with you guys. Ding, congratulations on creating a god-tiered delicacy. Heaven shark fin soup, made from combination of connate element of water, connate element of fire, heaven and earth smelt and heaven shark fin. It is a god-tiered delicacy. Effects, many amazing effects. When Lin Fan heard of the system's notifications, he did not have that much of a feeling toward it. To him, everything felt just really normal. This heaven shark fin could be considered as one of the greatest tonics in the entire universe. Without even talking about the other good stuff, the god-tiered delicacy made from this alone was already something extraordinary. The moment the smelt was opened up, a radiant light shot out and stole everyone's focus. Spirit chi burst forth into the sky and culminated above the heaven and earth smelt. Just what sort of a miraculous elixir is this? When Ling Wuwei caught sight of everything before him, he could not help but gasp in shock. In their eyes, this was just heaven-defying. A thick spirit chi floated before their faces. A single sniff of it was enough for the powers within their bodies to rumble out furiously. The moment those spirit race beings without any cultivation state caught a whiff of this, they could feel as though they were practically flying up into the heavens. Even though they did not have a cultivation base, they could feel some tremendous changes going on within their bodies under the effect of this miraculous delicacy. Seems like this is not too bad. Lin Fan lamented. Old bro, this is way too amazing. When Chicky took in the fragrance, and especially when he noticed the powers rummaging through within, he was practically intoxicated by it. Ha ha ha, Lin Fan burst out laughing, then swept his robes and pointed out with his finger. Using his power of creating physical objects, a series of sparkling ceramic bowls floated in the void one after another. He then divided this shark fin feast out evenly so that everyone could get one share at least. Those spirit race beings without any cultivation states would be able to break through to the azure celestial cultivation state if their innate potentials were average. For those that had an excellent innate potential, desolate celestial cultivation state wasn't out of the question as well. This heaven fin was a great tonic. And, this was especially the case now that other ingredients were added in. The effects produced were just plain sick, and not something that ordinary elixirs could compare with. When all of those spirit race beings without cultivation states looked at this precious treasure in their hands, they gulped it down in a single mouthful, without any hesitation. Shing! At this moment, the void rippled. These were the changes caused by the spirit race beings, who originally had no cultivation states, after devouring these heaven fins. Their tremendous amount of powers gathered and surged right up into the void. To think that it would be this strong. When Lin Fan caught sight of this, his heart skipped a beat. Desolate Celestial could be considered to be quite a low level here. There were even some spirit race beings who had broken through to the divine celestial cultivation state right away and churned out powers from there. In Lin Fan's eyes, these heaven fins were truly, incomparably powerful. At this moment, there was a wave of excitement within the spirit race. I've got true energy now. I feel like my entire body's cruising with powers. Powers. These are powers. This. After Ling Wuwei and the others ate up the heaven fins, even their own cultivation states were starting to undergo changes, and they thrust right into the higher cultivation state. If I hadn't witnessed this with my very own eyes, it would have been totally unimaginable. Ling Wuwei remarked. This was especially the case after seeing how those fellow race beings of his, who did not have any cultivation state before, possessed some pretty strong powers right now. His face was changed in astonishment entirely. These methods were just absolutely heaven-revolting. Thud. At this moment, countless spirit race beings collapsed onto the ground in prostration. They were filled with immense gratitude toward Lin Fan. In their eyes, Lin Fan was their great benefactor. They had endured an endless amount of oppression from the colossal shark race. Now that this mother *Sea King Human King had descended and slain the entire colossal shark race, as well as raising their powers to boot, a favor as such wasn't something they could repay at all. When Lin Fan caught sight of this, his heart leapt with joy. This was the type of atmosphere he wanted. When he saw how these beings of the spirit race were immensely grateful toward him, he was even prouder of himself. Senior. At this moment, Ling Wuwei came before Lin Fan with a look of awe on his face. In the face of a powerful being as such, Ling Wuwei did not have the slightest bit of haughtiness to him. He had lowered his dignity to the lowest level possible. Yes. Is there anything? Lin Fan asked peacefully. My immense gratitude for your salvation of the spirit race, Senior. This is a favor that I will carve into my heart forever. Ling Wuwei was grateful beyond words right now. As a spirit race being, the fact that he was able to see his fellow spirit race beings tread onto the path of happiness after being saved from hot waters was something that he couldn't be any more thankful for. Lin Fan smiled calmly while waving it off with his hands. It was just a passing affair. This might be a passing affair for Senior, but is indubitably the gift of a new life itself for the spirit race. Please receive my kowtow, Senior. Ling Wuwei did not hesitate before kneeling down onto the ground. All the other junior brothers and sisters of Ling Wuwei were thoroughly respectful towards Lin Fan right now, as they prostrated onto the ground just like Ling Wuwei. A powerful being as such was extremely difficult to come by. Now that he was here, he had shaken their entire souls. Creak. Just at this moment, a piece of jade tablet that Ling Wuwei hung at his waist suddenly shattered. Instantly, the face of Ling Wuwei and the others changed, looking extremely terrible. This broken jade tablet turned into starlight that began to converge. Within the void, it turned into a single voice message. All Spirit Heaven sect members who are outside, listen up. The sect has been invaded by monsters, resulting in its destruction. Do not return to the sect. Do not. Arg. Listening to the final tragic cry, the face of Ling Wuwei was irreparable right now. All of the few hundreds of spirit race beings were equally horrified. This was the voice of their grandmaster. Senior brother, this. Everyone looked at their senior brother, not knowing what they should do. Monsters. The moment Lin Fan heard this, he could not help but mull over it. How could there monsters and such in this world? Everyone knew about the ancient race. But, there was no one who would refer to them as monsters. Senior, your junior here shall take his leave first. There's something wrong with my sect. I've got to return to check it out. Ling Wuwei cupped his fists while saying. This was a matter of his sect. If even their Grand Master couldn't deal with it, it was evident that the enemies this time around were far from simple. While Senior might be powerful, they did not have any relationship with one another at all. This was especially after Senior had just saved the spirit race earlier on. If he were to seek help from Senior here once more, that might be a little too much. I'll go with you guys to check it out. Lin Fan was bothered by this as well, wondering what sort of sh*t was wreaking havoc onto the masses once more. But, in Lin Fan's opinion, he knew that this couldn't possibly be the ancient race. If it were the ancient race, the voice message in the Jade Tablet couldn't have described them as monsters. November LBJNN. They would naturally say that it was the ancient race. The moment Ling Wuwei heard these words, he naturally could not have wished for anything more. If Senior were willing to lend them a hand, that would be for the best. Against an enemy that even their Grand Master couldn't deal with, even if they were to head back, they wouldn't be of much help. Give me the address of your sect. Lin Fan said. To the north, 100,000 miles from here. Ling Wuwei said. All right, Chicky, time to go. Lin Fan waved his hands. The moment Chicky, who was still eating indulgently, heard these words, he leapt up onto Lin Fan's shoulders, albeit somewhat unwilling to let go of the food. Let's go. With a single sweep of his hands, Lin Fan brought Ling Wuwei and the others into a cage with him and darted through the void 100,000 miles up ahead. As for the other spirit race beings, they had stayed here for a long time, and were naturally extremely familiar with this place by now. Now that the colossal shark race had been annihilated, the threat to their lives had vanished along with that as well. As for the ancient race, they would naturally not be bothered with these spirit race beings here. After all, for the ancient race, these spirit race beings were here as weak as ants. Chapter 865, Horrifying Insect Ancestor. Chapter 865, Horrifying Insect Ancestor. A place where humongous mountains stood. There was a cluster of mountains surrounding this area. In the ancient saint world, the Heaven Spirit sect was but a negligibly tiny sect, and that was all. The Grand Master of the Heaven Spirit sect was someone of the spirit race. When he had ascended from the lower world, he was saved by a powerful being due to some fated encounter, and was, thus, saved from the evil grasps of the ancient race. Later on, when his cultivation reached a pretty decent standard, he created his own sect in order to give the spirit race beings a respite from the hells outside. Thus, the Heaven Spirit sect was created. There were countless spirit race beings who were being held captive and reared by the colossal shark race. As such, the final mission of the Heaven Spirit sect was to be able to save those fellow spirit race beings. As such, after every disciple became somewhat accomplished in their cultivation, they would head over there to attempt and save their fellow spirit race beings. However, this wasn't a compulsory mission, nor was there any requirement for them to complete. For the sect, any spirit race being saved would be good enough. Over a few couple hundred years, the number of spirit race beings that were saved from that place amounted to the thousands. However, there were countless spirit race beings who had fallen there because of it as well. N.O.V.L.B. in .C. Ohm. As one of the top 10 old ancient beast races, the colossal shark race was extremely formidable, and wasn't something that they could stand shoulder to shoulder with. But today, the Heaven Spirit sect was faced with the biggest calamity in their entire history. On this bright and sunny day, in these wild mountainous regions, the disciples of the Heaven Spirit sect were just out cultivating as always. But all of a sudden, a humongous mountain suddenly appeared out of nowhere. From the mountain, a crack tore open and countless monsters swarmed out. These monsters did not have a human form, they were like insects. They had many legs and heads, and their bodies were covered by a plate of armor. These armors were extremely resilient and tough. Normal martial arts and mystic skills wouldn't be able to cause any damage to them at all. The leader of this insect race was even more formidable, commandeering countless insect race beings. Even the Grand Master of the Heaven Spirit sect wasn't a match for him at all. At this moment, the outside area of the Heaven Spirit sect was filled with cricketing sounds made by these dense clusters of insect race beings. Facing these insect race beings, the disciples of the Heaven Spirit sect did not have any way of fighting back at all. The capabilities of these insect race beings were extremely sinister. Some of them had poison from top to toe, and were rotting everything around them. Even if one's powers were extremely profound such that they were able to form an astral chi shield, they wouldn't be able to block against it at all. The Grand Master of the Heaven Spirit sect, Ling Tianzi, had headed forth alone to try and slay the leader of the insect race. However, he had a limb bitten off in return. With a cultivation of divine celestial level 8 state, Ling Tianzi could regenerate his limbs if they were broken. However, in the area from where his limb was bitten off, there was a mysterious poison that shrouded and ate into the area consistently, rendering him unable to regrow that limb. At the same time, the poison was just corroding into his powers continuously. If he did not defend against it, even his universal elixir might be consumed by it. Cricket, countless enormous-sized insect race beings that seemed like mountains surrounded the entire Heaven Spirit sect. At this moment, there was a light screen that was shielding the Heaven Spirit sect. However, this light screen was fluttering endlessly, as though it could break down at any moment. This was the protective formation of the Heaven Spirit sect. But, by the looks of things right now, it's not going to hold out for much longer. I've already informed all the disciples who are out on expeditions to not return. I have no idea where these monsters hail from, for them to be this strong. Ling Tianzi's face was grim. He did not bear a single strand of hope in his heart right now. As he raised his head, all of those monsters that were mountain-sized individually seemed extremely horrifying. To think that the thousands of races would have the guts to set up a base in the territory of my insect race. This is undoubtedly just seeking death. A loud voice boomed out. It seemed as though this insect race was familiar with the thousands of races. Grand Master, what should we do now? The elders of the Heaven Spirit sect asked with a solemn look. The sudden appearance of these terrifying insect race beings had them unable to react in time, making them no match for the invaders. By the time they realized what was happening, the disciples were already in a mess of casualties. And right now, they were all cramped up in the main hall. All their other surrounding territories had fallen entirely into the hands of the enemies. Ling Tianzi did not reply. That dark face of his right now was enough to express everything he felt. Today was probably going to be the day the Heaven Spirit sect perished. However, as long as they had some legacy remaining outside, the spirit of the Heaven Spirit sect would never be lost. Ling Tianzi waved his hands, indicating for the disciples to leave. He then stood at the edge of the barrier and looked at these monsters. Just what sort of a race are you guys? Why are you guys striking out at the Heaven Spirit sect? Cricket. These insect race beings did not reply. However, their feelers were waving around, giving off a really eerie sound. At this moment, the insect race beings who were hogging up the area around the Heaven Spirit sect made way and the insect race leader who tore off Ling Tianzi's limb appeared in the gaps. Even though the body of this insect race being wasn't all that huge, he was pretty tall, with 8 feelers wriggling around in the air above. That face was filled with 8 olive-green eyes that gave off a savage glint. Cricket, spirit race, it's been several dozens of thousands of years since I've had a taste. The insect ancestor spoke in human tongue. However, its voice was extremely frosty and cold, giving off a chilling aura. The scent of the spirit race alone has your ancestor here reminiscing over it. A long, long time ago, there was also a spirit race being who did not know what was good for him, and wanted to come and kill your insect ancestor. Eventually, he was just devoured by your insect ancestor here. Oh, your ancestor here still remembers the name of that spirit race being. If I'm not mistaken, he was called the Spirit King Emperor. Cricket, that spirit race being was way stronger than any of you guys here. The moment Ling Tianzi heard these words, his face froze up as he let out a look of horror and disbelief. At this moment, the insect ancestor spoke up once more. Oh, right. Your bloodline is extremely similar to that Spirit King Emperor. I reckon that Spirit King Emperor must be your ancestor then, That's right, he must be your ancestor. But, what a pity. You don't even have half of what your ancestor had in terms of strength. All of a sudden, the body of the insect ancestor started to transform and change. That ugly outer shell was discarded, and out came a middle-aged man with an authoritative-looking, middle-aged man. Ancestor. When Ling Tianzi caught sight of this middle-aged man, he could not help but mumble out to himself. But, his face changed all of a sudden. Wait, this wasn't right. This wasn't the ancestor. Cricket, your ancestor here has devoured countless living beings. Everything that belongs to them is always recorded within my memories. The middle-aged man gave off a sinister laughter, then transformed once more to return to that hideous body from earlier on. The insect race was the most horrifying race in the infinite worlds. Because of that, the ancient saint world sealed them up and prevented them from ascending. Because of the carnivorous nature of the insect race, they were no longer satisfied with their own lower world. After traveling through the infinite worlds, they had eradicated countless races and species. Now that the barrier had opened up, the insect race finally ascended to the ancient saint world with an indomitable attitude, bent on devouring the thousands of races. This was the pact between the ancient race and the insect race. The infinite worlds had opened up numerous times, and like this, the insect race had ascended the same number of times. For the thousands of races out there, the heavens will of the ancient saint world wasn't the only thing they needed to fight against. They needed to deal with that horrifying insect race as well. The Spirit King Emperor was one of the supreme powerful beings during the opening of the infinite worlds the previous time around. However, he too fell in the hands of the insect ancestor. Living beings of the spirit race, just surrender and give up now. Do you guys really think that this barrier is able to keep you safe within? That's undoubtedly a fool's dream. Using an extremely sharp feeler, the insect ancestor tapped on the barrier gently. Creak. Instantly, the barrier shattered apart and revealed the heaven spirit sect entirely. How could this be? When Ling Tianzi caught sight of everything, his heart took a dive as though he could not believe everything right now. Chapter 866, Chicky Eats Worms. Chapter 866, Chicky Eats Worms. Cricket. Instantly, all of those humongous insect race beings let out a sinisterly creepy sound. The disciples of the heaven spirit sect looked at these horrifying living beings around them and started shivering. They were fearful right now. Those of them who had ascended from the lower worlds had a much firmer mental state than the others. But, when they caught sight of the situation before them, even they could not help but get nervous. The terrifying insect race looked at the spirit race as though they were looking at a prey. Sticky saliva started drooling out from the sides of their mouths. Ling Tianzi bolted upright instantly and shielded his disciples behind him. Insect race. Insect race. He lowered his head before laughing out miserably. All the disciples of the heaven spirit sect, listen to my commands. Today, we shall fight it out with this insect race. Yes, while these disciples were afraid, they puffed their chests up and showed no fear at this moment. Cricket, a bunch of ant-like living beings. Today, I shall have all of you devoured and reminisce about just how delicious the beings of the spirit race are. The insect ancestor took a step forth. In his eyes, these spirit race beings were nothing more than ants, good food that was waiting for him to fill his belly with. TSSSSSK. Instantly, the insect ancestor opened up that gigantic mouth of his. That originally not too huge body of his began to expand as an unknown green liquid poured out of his mouth. Feelers extended out of that body of his one after another, dancing up in the skies. In the blink of an eye, an insect ancestor that was several times larger than the previous one appeared. Within that menacingly frightening mouth of his, a row of sharp teeth lined within, as though anything, no matter what it was, would definitely be chewed down into scraps when placed into that mouth. Ugh! When the disciples of the heaven spirit sect caught sight of that monstrous body, they stumbled backward as their eyes shone with an endless fear. Some of the disciples were so scared that their hands and legs had lost all their strength, and they could not even hold the weapons in their hands steady anymore. There were even some who had fallen onto the ground crippled, having a look of extreme fear. In the face of this frightening monster, they were truly afraid right now. This was even scarier than facing up against the ancient race. While the ancient race was ugly, they were in no way as ugly as these hideous creatures. November LBJNN. And not only were these insect race beings ugly, they were savage. Each and every single one of them were just like the devil. Grandmaster. Right at this moment, the voice of Ling Wuwei rang out from far in the distance. The moment Ling Tianzi heard this, his face changed. Hurry and leave. He was starting to panic now. Hadn't he already told them to leave? Why did they choose to come back now? Goo! Ling Tianzi screamed out at the top of his lungs. Cricket, yet another bunch of spirit race beings. Since you're here, don't leave then. The insect ancestor looked at these spirit race beings and laughed out sinisterly. He waved the feelers on his body as they turned into streaks of black light that seeped into the void, attacking toward Ling Wuwei and the others. When Ling Tianzi caught sight of this, they felt their hearts getting nervous. But at this moment, there was nothing they could do about it as well. Could this be the insect race? Lin Fan, who was brought over by Ling Wuwei and the others, felt a series of images float into his memories as he caught sight of these monsters. Back in the records of the Cloud sect, he had seen some relevant introductions about these guys. The insect race was also a race amongst the thousands of races. However, they were the most savage of all. They would devour the other races before transferring their genetics unto their own bodies. Each time the infinite worlds opened up, the insect race would lead the charge and tear open the barriers of the insect world to come and devour the other beings. They could be considered as the steady brawlers of the ancient race. However, the insect race would not serve under the ancient race. Or rather, it would be more accurate to say that both races were just making use of one another. Interesting race. Later on, I'll have to dissect one and give it a good research. When Lin Fan caught sight of the insect race, that inquisitive and curious mind of his got to work right away. Now, this issue about dissecting the thousands of races was something that Lin Fan could not really bring himself to do it. But, when he looked at these insect race beings, he found his heart being filled with an endless joy. What can all these big insects be used for? You either barbecue them or dissect them, duh. Big insect. Big bro, there's a big insect. Chicky, who was standing on Lin Fan's shoulders, had his eyes shining with an endless gleam as he caught sight of these insect race beings. It was as though he was extremely excited. And just at this moment, the black light arrived. Within the black light was the feeler of the insect ancestor. Striking out the moment we meet. They're quite violent, aren't they? Lin Fan smiled out calmly. Opening up his palms, he pushed out instantly. Bam, bam, arg. The insect ancestor suddenly yelped out as his feeler was broken, causing that green liquid to spray out into the world furiously. Who's there? The face of the insect ancestor tensed up and looked extremely serious. He hadn't expected that there would be a living being who could be this strong. This was definitely unbelievable. Initially, Ling Tianzi had thought that those disciples of his would be killed by the insect ancestor immediately. To think that there would be someone there that was strong enough to be able to hold back the attack of the insect ancestor. Old bro, I can't take it anymore. Big insects. It's all big insects. All of a sudden, Chicky leapt down from the shoulders of Lin Fan. Kukik-ku. With a shrill cry, Chicky's body burst forth with an unparalleled radiance which shone down upon the world. At the same time, Chicky's body underwent a huge transformation all of a sudden. Kukik-ku. A few colored tails rose up furiously. At this moment, Chicky's body began to expand out rapidly as well, growing to a size larger than those insect race beings. By the time the radiance dissipated, a gigantic Chicky had appeared before Lin Fan. Those huge and thick chicken claws of his stood on the ground like heaven-piercing pillars. That chicken head of his was tilted high, facing the air with that sharp beak of his. The crown above his head was even more flamboyant right now. Kukik-koo. Chicky was mad right now. Those initially bright eyes of his were filled with a deranged look in them. Holy FCK, this is a bloody situation of a chicken eating worms. When Lin Fan looked at the appearance of Chicky right now, he was stunned as well. He hadn't expected such scene to manifest. Using his feet, Chicky stomped down on a being of the insect race. Following that, he used that sharp beak of his and pecked down like a piledriver, poking up and down relentlessly. In the blink of an eye, the seemingly formidable insect race was turned into a mess just like that. Chicky reared his head up high and swallowed that insect race being into his tummy instantly. Delicious, delicious. At this moment, Chicky revealed a look of utmost enjoyment. When the insect ancestor caught sight of this, he let out a maddened roar. At the same time, there was a look of astonishment on his face. The natural enemy of the insect race. How can this be? For the insect ancestor, the insect race was supposed to be an unparalleled supreme existence in the infinite worlds, which was meant to stand atop all the other races out there. But at this moment, the insect ancestor was shocked to discover that they had a natural predator. Beneath the feet of Chicky, some of the insect race beings lost that imposing aura they had earlier. They then started retreating quickly as though they were extremely afraid. As for the masses of the Heaven Spirit sect, they were completely stupefied by this scene before them right now. To think that these extremely horrifying beings of the insect race would actually turn so fragile in the face of such a weird-looking beast. One peck, one kill. They completely had no way of fighting back at all. Chapter 867, That's Earth. Chapter 867, That's Earth. Even if some of the insect race beings tried flipping themselves over onto Chicky's body, they would find themselves barbecued to a crisp as flames burst forth from Chicky's body instantly. Tyrannical. Very tyrannical indeed. Using his claws, he pinned down the insect race beings while he used his beak to swallow down other insect race beings. Everyone from the Heaven Spirit sect who was watching this felt their hearts shivering over it. What a ferocious beast. He was simply way too tyrannical. However, none of these masses knew just what sort of a beast Chicky was. Courting death. At this moment, the insect ancestor could only see his fellow race beings being bullied by an extremely ugly-looking beast. There was naturally no way he could endure this at all. Countless of feelers burst up into the sky. These jet-black gigantic feelers were extremely scary indeed. They could even contort space and time, let alone Chicky. Against all the other small worms, there was naturally no issue for Chicky. But, if he had to deal with a divine celestial level 10, eternal god state insect ancestor, the difference would truly be too great for him right now. Lin Fan's body flashed as a sword will burst forth into the skies. A bright flash shot out as the sword will sliced through the void. Just like paper, these immensely strong feelers were sliced apart in the blink of an eye. Along with that, yet another wave of green liquid spurted out across the sky. A tragic cry rang out from the mouth of the insect ancestor. So strong. When Ling Tianzi caught sight of everything before him, his heart was rattled. He then turned around to look at Ling Wuwei, wondering where his disciple managed to invite this powerful being from. However, Ling Tianzi could not help but wonder if this meant that there would be a change in the situation of today. Grand Master. Taking advantage of this brief respite, Ling Wuwei came over to the side of the Grand Master. All of those hundreds of spirit race beings joined into the crowd of the disciples as well. When they caught wind of their fellow brothers in the sect dying in the hands of this insect race, everyone felt caught up in emotions in their hearts. Wuwei, this person here is. Ling Tianzi looked over at Lin Fan, who was fighting against the insect race, and could not help but ask in doubt. Grand Master, that's the mother *Sea King Human King. Ling Wuwei then started explaining everything that happened to the colossal shark race for the Grand Master to hear. After hearing everything, Ling Tianzi's face was astounded, evidently in disbelief. Annihilating the entire colossal shark race? How could that be? The colossal shark race was one of the top 10 old ancient beast races, having an extremely formidable strength. That shark ancestor was even more godly than anything else. He was definitely not someone that any ordinary person could deal with. When the surrounding disciples heard the experiences relayed down by Ling Wuwei, they were taken aback equally. They could not believe that other than from within the ancient race, there would be another powerful being of this level. Just who in the world are you? At this moment, the insect ancestor looked at Lin Fan warily. His cautious gaze was also mixed in with a look of fury. To the insect ancestor, this was a damned fella who had dared to chop off his feelers twice. But, just these 2 times were enough for the insect ancestor to know that the strength of this living being before him was far from simple. Insect race. Say, this is a really weird race indeed. You guys are really extremely hideous. Lin Fan sized him up and down before letting out a bewildered expression. How come you guys look more like centipedes? This centipede that Lin Fan was talking about was a type of insect that existed in his previous life. And this insect ancestor right here looked really similar to that. How dare you insult the almightily great insect race? The moment the insect ancestor heard this, he blew up and his feelers started swinging around furiously, as though they were ready to slam Lin Fan to death. Xuanwang World, Mother *Sea King Human King. Hey, centipede insect, remember the name of yours truly. Don't end up not knowing who's the one who will dissect you. Lin Fan chuckled out. Now, dissection was something that required profound knowledge, and was not for the casual masses. Human race. Cricket, the human race is about to go extinct. Your ancestor here is the king of the insect race. I can never die nor be destroyed. The insect ancestor barked out before laughing out endlessly in a frosty tone as though he had just recalled something. Smelly insect, what are you laughing at? Lin Fan asked. Shut up, your ancestor is not a smelly insect. You puny little human, you'll definitely pay a terrible price for this. The insect ancestor waved out and danced with those countless feelers, sending chills down one's spine. Smelly insect, yours truly is asking you. What are you laughing at? Out of nowhere, the eternal axe had already appeared in the hands of Lin Fan. Go to hell for your ancestor. All of a sudden, the insect ancestor turned into a long streak of light that bolted out at Lin Fan. Hee, insect with 100 feet, let yours truly shave you into a clean stick then. Lin Fan burst out laughing as he swung the eternal axe. A long streak of light tore through the air, slicing and destroying everything in its path. Each time every single feeler of the insect ancestor moved, the void would be like white paper that was sliced apart. At this moment, there were many tears that appeared in the void, all caused by the wriggling of the insect ancestor's feelers. The void currents were going berserk right now as they surged into the world. If it were any ordinary powerful being who was caught up in these void currents, they would have long been minced into sludge and killed. But for Lin Fan, these were just akin to tickles that neither hurt nor itched. He didn't feel anything at all. Thud, the long streak of light exploded out as a tragic wail rang out across the entire world. Smelly insect, you're simply way too weak in the eyes of yours truly. This single man and axe just glided gently across the void to create an earth-shattering impact. All of a sudden, the insect ancestor found out that all of his feelers had been severed. His body was truly like a wooden rod right now that was rolling around on the ground. Damn it, damn it, the insect ancestor burst out in rage. The areas where his feelers were cut off from were oozing out green liquid endlessly. How's that? Even though Lin Fan was a divine celestial level 10 state being who hadn't obtained the eternal god seat, his powers were already heaven revolting. While the insect ancestor might be formidable, compared to Lin Fan, he was simply way too weak. Far, far too weak. And right now within this entire world, there might be powerful beings who could kill Lin Fan. Who knew for sure? But, the powerful beings who couldn't be killed by Lin Fan were practically barely existent. Even if it were the utmost beings of the ancient race, so what? If it came down to a life or death duel, Lin Fan had at least a 70% confidence that he could kill the utmost being solo. And, if he were to use the Ancient One and the others, that confidence level would rise up to 100%. As for this insect ancestor, he was nothing but an ant in Lin Fan's eyes. So strong. At this moment, the masses from the Heaven Spirit sect were totally stumped. They hadn't expected that things would come down to this. The extremely formidable insect ancestor in their eyes couldn't even take a single blow from the mother *C King Human King. And as for those other beings of the insect race, they were just dying extremely miserably under the feet of that extremely savage beast. Their flesh was being strewn all over the place. None of them died with a complete body. Delicious, delicious. It was as though Chicky was possessed right now. The moment he caught sight of these insect race beings, he was filled with an endless battle prowess. There was only a single thought in his mind right now. Eat, 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 mother *CKING Human King. You damned human, your ancestor shall have the entire human race disappear from the existence of the infinite worlds. The insect ancestor howled out before letting out a strange sound. Hooey hooey, I'm afraid I've got to disappoint you then. The Xuanwang world is already under the protection of yours truly. What other methods does a smelly insect like you have? Lin Fan chuckled out. Cricket, human, the Zanhuang world isn't the only place with humans. The insect ancestor screamed at the top of his lungs. He then opened up his gigantic mouth as a trace of his consciousness bolted out. All of a sudden, an illusory image appeared. When Lin Fan caught sight of this, he frowned. A series of meteors were bolting down in the endless universe at a tremendous speed, dragging long fiery tails behind them. And the target of these meteors was a clear blue world. Boom! The image changed in that instant. Within those meteors, countless insect race beings were revived and started blowing off the signal for the others to start devouring living beings as they waged war on that clear blue world. Earth. Lin Fan was frozen. Wasn't that his hometown? Damn it. November LBJNN. Lin Fan's brows creased as his entire body's aura burst forth in a tremendous surge. He then pointed out with a single finger. Shing. The body of the insect ancestor was sliced cleanly into two. See Cricket. Chapter 868. Back to where it began. Chapter 868. Back to where it began. The insect ancestor whose body was sliced cleanly into two wasn't dead at this moment just yet. The two gigantic parts of his body were wriggling in the void. Damned human. Damn it. The insect ancestor hadn't expected that he would be sliced into two by this human with just a single finger. Seeing that, his heart bubbled with an endless amount of fear. Human, watch and see how these ant-like human beings shall be conquered by the insect race. When Lin Fan caught sight of all those familiar structures within the image, his heart tightened. All this time, Lin Fan had thought that he was living in a parallel dimension or something. But, he had never imagined that Earth would just be one of the worlds in the infinite worlds. The descent of the insect race has caused all of that peaceful order to completely collapse down. In the face of this oppressive power of the insect race, all the armies broke down instantly. Even if it were nuclear weapons, they would only be akin to scratching the backs of these insect race beings. Countless cities failed in their defenses, and an innumerable amount of humans were devoured. Damn smelly insect. At this moment, Lin Fan truly did not know whether to get agitated or angry. Bam! With a single stomp, Lin Fan crushed the head of the insect ancestor immediately. All of a sudden, a rhombus-shaped colored insect crystal floated gently in the void. This insect crystal contained all the powers of the insect ancestor. It was the equivalent of the universal elixir of the other races. Human, how dare you commit an act as such to your ancestor? You shall die a horrendous death. From within the crystal, the maddened howl of the insect ancestor rang out. Tell me, what happened to that clear blue planet in the end? Lin Fan grabbed the rainbow crystal and asked harshly. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. The insect ancestor laughed out in a crazed manner. What happened? They must have naturally been devoured by the noble insect race. Creak. Lin Fan used a bit of force and the insect crystal of the insect ancestor developed an endless amount of cracks as though it could shatter apart at any time. No, stop, please stop. Your ancestor is the ancestor of the insect race. You can't do that, the insect ancestor screamed out. He was so scared that he was practically pissing all over right now. November LBJNN. He hadn't expected that the strength of this human would be this strong. That insect crystal of his is the toughest existence within the entire universe. But, with a single gentle squeeze, his insect crystal seemed as though it could crumble at any moment. This had the insect ancestor panicking down from the bottom of his heart. HMPH. Courting death. Initially, I had wanted to toy with you for a fair bit. But right now, you have already completely angered yours truly. You can go to hell then. Lin Fan barked. Tell me, how do I get to that place? Lin Fan asked sternly once more. Let go of your ancestor and your ancestor will tell you. The insect ancestor was no fool. He could sense that the inner heart of this human was clearly wavering. And the reason for this waver was exactly because Lin Fan was concerned about that clear blue planet. You have no rights to bargain with yours truly. Lin Fan replied with cold tone. He then used more force, and the crystal instantly started cracking out even further. No, you can't do that. Otherwise, you will never be able to find out how to get over there. The insect ancestor could clearly feel the killing intent that was emanating out from this human. With that, his heart felt a sense of fear surging through it. He could feel that this human was practically going to kill him at any moment now. Great Buddha's light of purification. Lin Fan roared out. Instantly, the entire world was enveloped in a Buddha light as countless purifying Buddhas came forth while chanting sutras. They wrapped around the insect crystal of the insect ancestor as a power of purification seeped into the cracks. Purify, purify. The great Buddha's light of purification was a heaven-defying mystic skill that was lost by the Buddha race a long time ago. And now that Lin Fan's powers were even more formidable than ever, purifying a mere insect ancestor was something he could do with casual ease. Human, you want to purify your ancestor. Insect mother, save me. Insect mother, save me. The insect ancestor sent out a series of consciousness streams one after another. But the moment the consciousness was sent out, they were intercepted by Lin Fan, trying to send out a distress signal through your consciousness in the face of yours truly. You've got to be dreaming. Ding, purification success. Tell me, how do I get over there? Lin Fan asked once more. Master, this is a dimensional god insect. He can bring you over. At this moment, an immensely thin and long dimensional god insect that looked like an earthworm flew out of the insect crystal. With that, a boundless amount of dimensional power shrouded the entire area. Lin Fan looked at the dimensional god insect and furrowed his brows. This dimensional god insect was a special type of insect god within the insect race. Even though it did not possess that much of a personal strength, it had a special innate gift that was extremely powerful and could break through any sort of barriers between different dimensions. Master, the insect ancestor who was now purified looked at Lin Fan with a face of servitude, hoping to be praised by Lin Fan for his work. Crack, Lin Fan laughed coldly and the insect crystal was broken instantly. As the broken crystal shards floated in the skies, an endless amount of spirit chi was burst forth. Lin Fan opened his mouth wide and sucked in all of the spirit chi. Ding, congratulations on killing insect ancestor. Ding, experience points plus. Ding, congratulations on obtaining infinite worlds map. At this moment, the ancient saint's sacrificial altar started vibrating immensely. The dimension god insect that was floating in the void seemed as though it was being pulled by some unknown force as it started gravitating towards the ancient saint's sacrificial altar. Ding, discovered dimension god insect and infinite worlds map. Able to be fused with the ancient saint's sacrificial altar. Lin Fan hadn't expected a transformation as such. Spreading his hands wide open as though he was grabbing out for a little chicken, he pinched the dimension god insect over. Realizing that there was danger, the dimension god insect wanted to burrow into the void to make an escape. But in the hands of Lin Fan, there was no way it could possibly escape. Come on over. Without hesitating, Lin Fan fused the dimension god insect with the ancient saint's sacrificial altar. At the same time, the infinite worlds map was added in as well. All of a sudden, the entire world shone with a bright gleam as something huge was happening to the ancient saint's sacrificial altar. Within the inner world, the ancient saint's sacrificial altar's functions were undergoing a huge change. It could suddenly detect any world amongst the infinite worlds. At the same time, Lin Fan could directly burn up Shenyang pills to cross barriers reach any world out there. Cricket. For the beings of the insect race, the death of the insect ancestor had a great impact. Without a leader, all of these insects were now in a daze. Seizing this opportunity, Chicky went on a rampage of pecking down as well. In the blink of an eye, all the insect race beings were all dead. So strong. When the disciples of the Heaven Spirit sect caught sight of this, they were completely dumbfounded. In their eyes, this mother *C King Human King was simply way too strong. To think that the invincibly mighty insect ancestor would be dead just like that. And that strange-looking beast was extremely violent as well. Compared to the insect race, the difference was really tantamount to the heavens. Kukkaku. At this moment, Chicky felt as though he could barely eat anymore. Too full. He was way too full right now. But in Chicky's eyes, these insect race beings were just truly delicious. After eating them up, there was also signs of his strength skyrocketing into the heavens. Right now, Lin Fan's attention was fully immersed within that ancient science sacrificial altar as he started searching for the coordinates of Earth. King. Ling Tianzi walked up furtively wanting to thank Lin Fan properly. After all, the other party was someone who had just saved their entire sect. If not for this mother *C King Human King, the Heaven Spirit sect might have perished entirely. But at this moment, Lin Fan had no mood nor time to be bothered with any of these at all. He stood there silently without speaking at all. Ling Tianzi saw how the mother *C King Human King didn't say anything at all and decided not to ask any further. He too stood there for a long time. In his opinion, the king must be thinking about something. All of a sudden, Lin Fan found the final coordinates he wanted. Chicky, time to go. Kukkaku. Chicky swallowed the final insect race being and flew over to Lin Fan. Lin Fan waved out with his hands. Without wasting any time, he used the ancient saint's sacrificial altar to cross the worlds towards Earth. Chapter 869, Starlight City. Chapter 869, Starlight City. At this moment, everyone from the Heaven Spirit sect were stunned. He was gone just like that, without saying even a single word. Wasn't that just way too direct? Ling Tianzi wanted to say something. But at this moment, he could only keep it within his heart. He didn't even get a chance to say it. Cough, cough. Ling Tianzi gave a slight cough before turning around and putting on an extremely serious and straight face. Watch and learn. That's a true powerful being, a true hero. He has done a favor tantamount to the Heaven Spirit sect and yet, he did not harp about it even for a single moment. This is what it means to not leave your name after doing a good deed. However, we of the Heaven Spirit sect shall not be ungrateful people. The grace accorded to us by the mother *C King Human King shall be something we will etch deep in our hearts. Next time, when any of you head out, no matter who it is that bumps into the king, you must all bow down and be extremely respectful. Yes, Grand Master. All the other remaining disciples who were still alive broke out into cheers. They had literally just passed by death's door. That was extremely scary. Earth. This was a place so desolate that it had already turned into a desert. On those yellow sands, corpses laid there one after another. They were already long dried up by the raging gusts, and were buried deep beneath the ground. Shing. The void rippled as a tear appeared. The man and chicken duo appeared within this world. Holy FCK, I'm finally here. To think that the barrier to Earth would be this strong. Thankfully, yours truly is one hell of an awesome FCK who's able to blow the barrier away. Even though Lin Fan was a little emotional about returning to Earth, he did not have that much of an overall feeling towards this. It was just that the situation before him was looking somewhat off. Earth used to be such a beautiful place in the past. But why did it seem like hell right now? Lin Fan sent out his consciousness across the entire Earth. There were quite a number of people still alive. However, they were separated far apart. And not only that, there had been a significant dip in numbers. Back in the past, there was around 8 billion people. But right now, the population was around 4 billion. Nearly half of the people had died. So weak. Lin Fan discovered that the beings of the insect race who had invaded Earth were extremely weak in terms of strength. The strongest amongst them was only a greater celestial full cultivation state being. Wasn't this just one hell of a FCK job? But, there was something that startled Lin Fan. The humans remaining basically all had cultivation as well. And, there were 30 strong humans amongst them, who had a cultivation of greater celestial full cultivation state. The rest were extremely weak. Extremely weak. Boom. Just at this moment in a faraway place, a mushroom cloud rose up. Following that, another mushroom cloud floated up. Bam, bam, the loud explosions boomed out into the world and quaked it. By the looks of it, a nuclear explosion should have been triggered. Kukkaku, old bro, the spirit chi here is extremely thin. I can barely breathe anymore. Chicky took in a deep breath, then coughed out repeatedly. When he opened that beak, he spat out a mouthful of dust. Old bro, take a look. Your Chicky has only taken in a single breath and yet there's so much dust. There's no spirit chi at all, man. I'm practically just eating dirt. Chicky complained. Alright now, why do you have so much crap to spout? If I were to take you over to Beijing and make you inhale some smog, aren't you going to just die from choking? Lin Fan chuckled out. Right now, the surface of the earth was basically covered up by yellow sand. All the natural habitats had been ruined by now. However, from deep in the unknowns, Lin Fan felt that there was something strange about Earth. It was as though there was a mysterious power that was watching over it. If not for the fact that Lin Fan's cultivation state had already gotten to this level, he might not have been able to feel it. Back, when he was crossing the barrier of the Earth, Lin Fan hadn't thought that there was anything wrong with it. But on the other hand, Chicky seemed to be pushed out by some force. But, after he placed Chicky in his storage, everything was settled. Time to take a look first and check out just what happened here. By the time everything is settled, I'll then check out what secrets Earth holds. To think that a small little planet like this can restrict the entrance of powerful beings as well. This doesn't make any sense at all. PSHEW. For Lin Fan, Earth was simply way too small. He didn't even need a single minute to make a round around the entire Earth. It had been 5 years since the insect race has invaded Earth. For humans, this was a calamity they could not face at all. When the countless number of insect race beings descended upon Earth, humans were caught off guard so suddenly that they couldn't react to it at all. By the time humans had realized what was going on and were prepared to face it, Earth had already fallen. And, it was at this very moment that the deities and gods of the legends appeared. They bore with them immense strength as they roamed around the world, chasing off these insect race beings. With that, they gave mankind a chance. And at that very moment, a new world arose. Under the organization of these powerful beings, cities were built one after another. Eventually, an alliance was formed. These cities were gigantic assault strongholds that could defend against the insect race beings. At the same time, these powerful beings handed down the methods of cultivation for everyone to start learning and cultivating. They laid down a grading in order to differentiate between the strength of others. SSS, SS, S, A, B, C, D, E. These grades were drafted out by those deities in the legends and the entire world adhered to these strength categories. The strongest amongst them were the SSS. This was the case for those deities of the legends, who were all SSS. Starlight City. This was one of the top 10 strongest cities in the entire world. Be it in terms of the cultivation states of the members or the equipment for defenses, they were extremely formidable in both aspects. The combination of martial arts and technology was just like a chemical reaction that brought forth an immense impact. Each time those boundless waves of insect race beings tried invading, they would use nuclear weapons to clear out the weaker of the insect race beings. As for those stronger ones, they would be left to deal with by the powerful beings. However, this time around, Starlight City is meeting with the biggest threat in its history. Bring GGGGGGGGGGGG. There was a population of 30 million in Starlight City, and it could be considered as a top-tiered city. At this moment, alarms were blaring out all over the city. Above the city was a light screen that shielded the entire place. This was the combination of the mystic skills of martial arts and technology. It was enough to defend against attacks of a graded insect race beings. NOVEL-B in .C ohm. There was a single SSS powerful being holding the fort for the Starlight City. Other than them, there were countless SS, S, and A grade beings. Because humans had the aid of technology while they were cultivating, it resulted in their rapid rise in cultivation states. However, when they were faced up against beings of the insect race, a single insect race being required 5 or more humans in order to fight at the same cultivation state. This was a problem that the humans were having difficulties in solving. On the gathering square for battle, all the big schools within the Starlight City had their teachers and students preparing to face the battle. The insect race beings that they had to face against this time around were way stronger than anything they had faced before, way stronger. The only single SSS powerful being stood on an elevated platform with a grim expression on his face. However, now that things had already happened, the only way to deal with it was to face it. The insect race has already committed a full frontal assault. This is the most serious one of all time. If you do not wish to see the Starlight City being overrun by the insect race, this is the time for you to take out your fullest powers and fight them to the end. If we were to fail, these tens of millions of humans in the Starlight City are going to end up as food for the insect race. Everything we've worked so hard to defend shall be gone right before our very eyes. The insect race has already broken through the defenses. The power of the protective barriers have dipped. We can't hold out for much longer now. Everyone, full force attack. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the morale of the humans was extremely riled as they rushed towards the city walls. Chapter 870, Descent of the Insect Race. Chapter 870, Descent of the Insect Race. Cricket. The clicking sounds generated by the insect race were extremely sinister and creepy. Coupled with that menacing-looking body of theirs, it was definitely rattling for one's mind. If one didn't have a steady heart, they might just sweat out profusely the moment they caught sight of one of these monstrosities. Even though the students of the schools had experience in actual battle, when they caught sight of the sheer number of insect race beings in that dense cluster, their faces were drained of color as their legs started wobbling in fear. Even the teachers from the schools could not help but gulp down saliva as well. Scary. This was way too scary. In every single direction of the Starlight City, the insect race had already surrounded them completely. There were so many of them that even water couldn't seep through, let alone dreaming of escaping this place. Good luck, good luck. We love you guys. At this moment, a series of sweet-sounding cheers burst forth. In a gigantic screen far in the distance, a large number of girls appeared. These girls were once superstars that were extremely famous throughout the entire world. They were extremely beautiful, but at this very moment, they were just boosting the morale of mankind. Let's see which handsome man can kill the most insect race beings this time around. Maybe I can be your girlfriend one day, teehee. Words like these had an immense impact on the young men especially, boosting their fighting spirits. Oh, that's Wang Shiwen, my favorite actress. That's Juju. No matter what, I'm going to show off all my strength today. Within the broadcasting station of the Starlight City, a group of stars stood before the cameras and put on a brave front. But, once the cameras were off them, they could not help but let out frightened looks. That was because they knew that the assault of the insect race on them this time around was not to be underestimated and boasted of a huge force. Even their only SSS powerful being had to step forth into the battlefield. Are we going to die? No, we'll definitely not. They will definitely protect us. Boo-hoo, I don't want to die. During situations like these, some of the weaker humans could be seen hiding all around the cities in their homes. Some of them who had a stronger heart would gather in the streets and watch the big screens above. However, the only thing shown on those big screens right now was those seas of insect race beings. One after another, the insect race beings howled out in rage. Those menacing faces of theirs had everyone so scared that their faces were pale as a sheet. On the city walls, this time around, the force is abnormally strong. To think that after detonating 30 nuclear warheads, there would still be this many insect race beings left. The face of the only SSS powerful being was grim as he remarked. Li Hongjun was once a powerful being who had remained hidden deep in the mountains to cultivate in seclusion, far away from secular affairs. Later on, when the insect race invaded and the human race was on the brink of annihilation, he left the mountains and came forth to fight against the insect race. However, the strength of the insect race was far beyond what he could have imagined. Thankfully, he wasn't the only powerful being. That was the reason why mankind had stood a fighting chance. Sir, do you think that we can chase the insect race back this time around? A woman asked in a hushed tone. She could sense that the mood of the sir was extremely serious. This was the first time he was this serious in the past few years. In her opinion, this was something that would only happen if the situation was extremely unfavorable. Li Hongjun stayed silent for a moment. If this is all the insect race has, we will definitely be able to hold out even if there are many casualties awaiting us. At this moment out in the streets, everyone was watching the screens nervously. There are so many of the insect race this time around. Can we still remain alive after this? We will definitely be fine. The great sir has stood out personally. We will definitely stand victorious. Ah, take a look. What is that? Right at this moment, the entire world quaked as a tear that was just like a gutter ripped apart on the ground. All of a sudden, a monstrous roar filled the entire world as a tremendous aura burst forth from it. Countless insect race beings made way instantly. In a flash, two gigantic, pitch-black bug legs extended out of that gutter. That is, when Li Hongjun caught sight of this situation, his entire face changed. That's the aura of a greater celestial full cultivation state. The grading of cultivation states was something quite ancient. Later on, when the entire world changed, these powerful beings rearranged the rankings in terms of alphabets for the sake of humans. However, in their hearts, they would always use that olden grading of cultivation states. Clang, clang, a loud booming sound rang forth. Another bug leg, yet another bug leg. By the time that insect race being was completely out of the gutter, Li Hongjun's eyes were completely frozen. Eight-eyed wolf spider. The body shape of this insect race being might be that of a spider, but its body was as huge as a skyscraper. There were 8 chilling eyes that rolled around rapidly, giving off a chilling feeling. That gigantic body of it gave off an immensely pressurizing feeling. All of the humans who were watching in front of the screens were completely frozen solid. They knew of this insect race being. The 8-eyed wolf spider was an incredibly strong insect race being. It had once destroyed cities that were filled with powerful beings. And now that the 8-eyed wolf spider had appeared in the Starlight City, this was undoubtedly an extremely huge calamity for the humans here. At this moment, the students and teachers of the schools started yelling out. That's the 8-eyed wolf spider. One of the most difficult existences to deal with in the insect race. It's over. It's all over for us. There's no more hope left. Boom. Before they could even finish with their words, there was yet another disturbance. A 100-legged dragon-like being streaked through the skies. Those numerous legs wriggled around in the air, and the 1,000-foot-long body of it was immensely horrifying to look at. That's the 100-legged centipede. How could this be? Why would it appear here? Isn't that something that only exists in the Western continents? N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Dead. We're definitely dead meat. The Starlight City is doomed to fall this time around. To think that 2 SSS kings of the insect race would appear here. Why would that happen? At this moment, all the humans in the Starlight City began to yell out in fear. Their faces were ghastly white, without a single trace of blood. In the face of these 2 SSS kings of the insect race, they had lost every single bit of resistance. Li Hongjun's body started shivering as though he could not believe everything that was before his very eyes right now. How could this be? What has happened to the insect race? Why would they suddenly send 2 SSS kings here without any premonitions at all? When the 8-eyed wolf spider first appeared, there might have been a fighting chance for Li Hongjun. But by the time the 100-legged centipede appeared, he was despairing entirely. These were 2 top-tiered existences within the insect race, and were the most savage among them as well. Stomp, stomp, stomp. All of a sudden, the entire world quaked once more as a huge, dark figure appeared far in the distance. When everyone cast their sights over, they could only see a single black figure. However, they could not make out what it was. But, that black figure was a couple of times larger than even the 8-eyed wolf spider. What's that? Everyone shouted out in shock. They could clearly hear the sound that were coming forth from that black figure. It was a sound like that of a wild beast, and was extremely frightening to hear. By the time the black figure showed its true face, the entire Starlight City started bawling. How could this be? Impossible. Dead meat. We're definitely dead meat. There's no way we can fight this at all. When Li Hongjun caught sight of the true face of that black figure, he was completely dumbfounded. A torrential aura burst forth like a crashing wave that ripped out within the entire world. Creak. The protective barrier of the Starlight City shattered into glimmers that scattered out and disappeared into the world. To be able to tear down the protective barrier with just its aura, the strength of that black figure was absolutely heaven-revolting. Puny ant-like humans, your doomsday has arrived. All of a sudden, a sinister voice boomed out. This voice was like the devil's music that permeated right into the hearts of the humans. Chapter 871, What a composed fella. Chapter 871, What a composed fella. Insect God. Li Hongjun would have never expected that the insect god would come forth for the insect stampede this time around as well. This gigantic insect god was made up of countless insect race beings. It had a humanoid form. However, it was pitch black all over, with insect race beings crawling all over its body. This was something that had surpassed the existence of SSS. Wherever the insect god appeared, that place would definitely turn into hell. The insect god was invincible. Even if all 30 powerful beings of Earth were to unite, they wouldn't be a match for the insect god. The insect god was unkillable and imperishable. No matter how much power they had, they could never take down the other party. In the western continents, the largest city which contained countless powerful beings crumbled down in the blink of an eye against the insect god. They didn't even have a single chance to fight back. The SSS powerful beings within there died on the spot, and became food for the insect race as well. For the powerful beings back then, that was an absolute nightmare. They could not have imagined that there would be an insect race being who would be that strong. But thankfully, the insect god rarely made an appearance. Otherwise, there was truly no one in this world who can stand in the way of the insect god. But right now, everyone could feel their guts being smashed. Li Hongjun's shoulders were completely slumped as he had given up all hope on defending this. Without even talking about the insect god, those two SSS kings of the insect race were already not something he could deal with at all. The entire Starlight City was full of miserable wails right now as everyone started crying out. They could feel that death was upon them, and they would soon be the food in the tummies of the insect race. In the Asian continent, there was a city that was established on an entire ocean. This was the strongest city here, as there were 10 SSS beings gathered here. This could be where the hope of the entire human race rested. But, at this very moment within the control center of the Hope City, everyone was getting busy. The Glory City is being attacked on all fronts by the insect race. Please render us assistance. This is bad. The Starlight City is struck by an insect stampede. 2 SSS kings of the insect race has appeared. What? When the commander heard these words, his face changed. Hurry up. Lock onto them with the satellite and transmit the images over. This is bad. There is an extremely high energy feedback being given off from the Starlight City. The powers are beyond that of an SSS being. It wasn't long before the image was transmitted. Standing between the heaven and earth, a tall black figure with countless of insect race beings crawling all over its body appeared on the screen. How could that be? That's the insect god. At this moment, everyone was completely stumped and confounded. In their eyes, this was just ridiculous. They could not have ever imagined that the insect god would appear. It's over. The Starlight City is going to be completely destroyed. The commander stood there frozen, with his heart thumping as well. He then snapped back to his senses. Who is the one guarding over the Starlight City? Hurry up and transmit these images over to the nearby cities and have them send out people to save him. Abandon the Starlight City. Reporting to Commander, it is guarded by Sir Li Hongjun. Hurry up, give up on defending entirely. Have them organize for him to escape. No matter what, we must not let any more powerful beings fall. The commander pumped down the orders. For the commander, the powerful beings were the hope of the human race. If they were to fall, the entire human race would receive a great blow from that. At this moment, the entire sky was darkened as the Starlight City was shrouded with an aura of death. The moment the insect god appeared, all humans within city had given up on resisting entirely. Li Hongjun gripped the longsword in his hands tightly before raising his head with vigor, F***ck. Even if this is the case, we have to fight it out. Sir, the Hope City has sent word for us to leave. No matter what, you must not die here. A messenger rushed over hurriedly. N-O-V-E in .c Ohm. Li Hongjun shook his head and looked at the vast city and those countless humans residing here. Today, we must fight till the very end. We can no longer retreat. All of you, put up your utmost attention. We are of the human race. How can we bow down in fear to the insect race? Fight. All of those teachers and students who were trembling tried their best to regain their composure as they fought back against the fear in their eyes, were not afraid of death. That's right, we'll fight with these smelly insects all the way to the end. Boom, and at this moment, the insect race finally made their move. The insect god screeched out loudly as the sea of insects started pulsating and moving forth. Like a bulldozer, those two kings of the insect race pushed forth and rushed toward the Starlight City. The loud commotion that was being caused and the chilling image rushed straight at the faces of the humans. As they approached closer, the fear within everyone's hearts stemmed even deeper. Cricket. All of a sudden, that 8-eyed wolf spider twisted those legs of its and leapt right up into the sky. That gigantic body covered the entire sky above them. That pulsating tummy of it suddenly shrank in as its butt started spraying out a gigantic web that blanketed the Starlight City. This current scene was just like doomsday for all the humans watching this. They had lost every single last bit of hope entirely. Li Hongjun bellowed out as a tremendous amount of power burst forth from him. Even though he knew that this was death that was awaiting him, he had no fear. When everyone in the command center of the Hope City saw this sight, they could only shut their eyes as they were unable to bear watching this. In their eyes, the Starlight City could be considered as destroyed by now. This was yet another city that had fallen into the hands of the insect race. This was yet another bunch of countless fellow humans that were killed in the hands of the insect race. Bam! The commander lowered his head and thumped furiously on the table. F***ck. Why did everything had to turn out this way? Good. All of a sudden, a loud cry rang out. The commander was angered. To think that this person would dare to say, "Good," at this moment. But when the commander raised his head, he was completely flabbergasted. What's that? For the masses of the Starlight City, this was a scene they would never ever forget. Lee Hongjun stood rooted where he was as well as though he was in a daze right now. Just moments earlier, a bright flash of light had appeared from above the sky all of a sudden, and with it, a gigantic sword bolted down and pierced through the eight-eyed wolf spider, pinning it into the ground. What's that? What's going on? At this moment, everyone was astounded in their hearts, not knowing what had just happened. Take a look, there's someone in the sky. All of a sudden, a loud cry rang out. The masses raised their heads and looked up into the sky where a lone human figure stood there silently. Seems like this situation doesn't look all that good, Lin Fan descended slowly with his hands behind his back, then landing on the hilt of the long sword. His white robes fluttered while his long hair flew in the breeze. He stood there just like that silently, looking down at the situation below. Cricket. At this moment, all the beings of the insect race came to a stop. They had just felt an extremely horrifying aura. And the fact that a king of the insect race had been killed by a single sword, that was something that had the insect race beings fearful. As for all of those startled humans of the Starlight City, they looked at the big screen blankly as well, wondering who in the world this person was. The fact that he had descended down from the heavens and slain the eight-eyed wolf spider with a single sword was something that had long blinded their eyes. That's the Messiah. At this moment, everyone stayed silent for a few moments before they erupted in cheers. Lee Hongjun looked at that figure in stark astonishment as well. For him, the greatest blow came from that single sword. To think that the extremely ferocious eight-eyed wolf spider would be pinned into the ground with a single sword. Dead. The king of the insect race, the eight-eyed wolf spider, was dead just like that. Who are you? Lee Hongjun gulped down his saliva asking. Lin Fan turned his head around and revealed a smile. But all of a sudden, the 100-legged centipede leapt forth and bolted right at Lin Fan. Watch out. This suddenly situation had everyone completely taken aback. But right at this moment, they had suddenly realized that the man standing on the hilt of the sword had only raised his hands gently and given a pinch that was ever so light. Yet, something extremely terrifying happened. Bam! The 100-legged centipede disappeared instantly, turning into dust. Mother **C King Human King, Lin Fan. Lin Fan beamed widely with an extremely casual expression, revealing his rows of curly whites while replying. But, that single image of his was imprinted into the hearts of all members of mankind there. So damn bloody composed. Chapter 872, A Composed Act. Chapter 872, A Composed Act. To kill the eight-eyed wolf spider with a single sword and the 100-legged centipede with a single finger pinch. These were two kings of the insect race, and their strength was just godly. To think that these kings of the insect race who were practically pushing the entire mankind onto the edge would be defeated by the other party in the blink of an eye. This was a scene that was not only startling, it was practically shell-shocking. All of Lee Hongjun's fingers were trembling right now. However, this wasn't fear. This was excitement. He had fought with the insect race for 5 years now. In these 5 years, there had been countless humans who had died in the hands of the kings of the insect race. They had tried thinking up of all sorts of plans to leave some seed of hopes for the human race. But, against those two kings of the insect race, there was nothing they could do. But, to think that those two formidable kings of the insect race would be slain with such ease by this young man before them. This was akin to a nuclear warhead being detonated right in the center of Lee Hongjun's heart. Mother **C King Human King. Lee Hongjun mumbled with his mouth. This was an extremely tyrannical title. But at this moment, Lee Hongjun felt that this young man before him was the only one befitting of this title. He had cultivated for several hundreds of years now, and had experienced eras one after another. He just sat by idly, watching the winds of fortune change without interfering in any secular affairs. As long as the sky didn't topple down, he was just going to be a bystander. In all of their hearts, the only goal they had was to search for the Tao. But, ever since the descent of the insect race, everything changed. According to the old ancient records, this was the invasion of monsters through the opening up of a dimension. However, there was extremely little information described in those records, and he could not figure out just what was happening at all. But he believed that there would always be another being that was more powerful out there. There must absolutely be a world out there with beings and things they did not know about. And this young man before his eyes must be that being that was more powerful than the others from another world. Lin Fan's heart was calm as he acted with a casual expression, "Highs." To think that in 5 mere years, the same Earth would have so much difference in its people and habitat. Things have changed. The moment Li Hongjun heard these words of this mysterious mother *C King Human King before him, his heart skipped a beat. Could this mother *C King Human King be a human from Earth as well, and had just returned after leaving for 5 years? Boom! And just as Li Hongjun was in a state of astonishment, the entire Starlight City exploded out with a loud sound as the countless humans within started cheering. This was a feeling of exhilaration that came from the bottom of their hearts after being oppressed for an extended period of time. Amazing! This was the best feeling ever. The kings of the insect race are dead. The kings of the insect race are dead. This young man has saved us. To slay the king of the insect race with a single sword. This is a deity. We don't have to die now. Countless people rallied out in cheers. For all of them, Lin Fan was the rumored deity in all of the legends. That disposition of his was just like a heaven-piercing pillar that they could not hope to reach ever. When all the chicks caught sight of this figure, they were thoroughly intoxicated as well. They could feel that their hearts had already fallen right into his charisma. That upright figure and that calm expression of his attracted them endlessly. If Lin Fan were to beckon to them by curling his fingers, they would practically pounce over right on him. Hope City. The commander stood before the screen blankly right now. He then yelled out excitedly, "Hurry up! Open up all the communications to all the other cities and broadcast the image of Starlight City out right now. This is the hope of mankind. This is the first time mankind has ever managed to slay a king of the insect race. We have to let every single human out there watch this entire scene." The commander hollered out with a delighted look on his face. Mankind had been shrouded with a deathly aura after being oppressed by the insect race. There were innumerable humans who had given up hope, and were just waiting for death to approach. But to think that this powerful young man with an unknown background would streak across the battlefield and slice down a king of the insect race with a single sword. This was something that was definitely invigorating for the entire human race. "Sir Commander, the insect god is still there. If the human race were to find out that the insect god has appeared, there might be a commotion caused. And if this young man is killed by that insect god, I'm afraid." The surrounding staff remarked. This was the one thing they were afraid of. Even though this young man was extremely strong, the powers of that insect god were heaven-revolting. If he were to be killed on the spot by the insect god, it might bring forth a mass hysteria. The larger the hope, the greater the fall. And it was especially at this moment when the situation was quite precarious, with all the major cities being attacked by insect stampedes. "Don't ask so much. This scene must be broadcasted out. Inform Li Hongjun that he has to protect the life of that young man no matter what, and bring him over to the headquarters. A young man as powerful as him must be kept safe," the commander said. Yes, without hesitating, the masses got busy once more. In a jiffy, be it cities that were under the onslaught of an insect stampede or cities that were enjoying peace right now, they all received the news of this. All of the major cities had a large screen in their cities, which was used to broadcast important news. At this moment, the large screens lit up. "Attention! Breaking news! A mysterious, powerful young man has just killed 2 kings of the insect race." Everyone stopped everything they were doing and felt their hearts skip a beat. They then looked over at the large screen. Some of the people who were praying in their homes ran out at this moment as well. In all the major schools, there were countless young women who were working hard at cultivating right now. They only had a single thought in their minds: to turn stronger and fight against the insect race. But when they heard the news, they too stopped everything they were doing. People like them were long used to hearing all sorts of news. It was either this city being destroyed one day or the painful defeat of humans elsewhere on another day. But now that they heard of someone who could kill 2 kings of the insect race, they naturally got excited. This was practically a fantasy tale in their minds. A human who could slay the kings of the insect race. Even the powerful beings at the top could not do it. By now, all the city streets were filled with humans. The image opened up, and a figure was etched into their minds. A single long sword stood tall between the entire world, and at the top of that sword stood a young man in white robes. The eight-eyed wolf spider laid there at the bottom near the sharp edge. And, in the distance not too far away, the 100-legged centipede was now crushed into countless parts and just laid there silently as well. This was a scene that was way too shocking for them. This was more incredible than any news they had ever heard. That's the king of the insect race, the eight-eyed wolf spider. My hometown was destroyed by that. The 100-legged centipede, the strongest king of the insect race. This. Just who in the world is he? Guys, holy sh*t. Look, that's the insect god. The insect god has appeared. What? Impossible. How could the insect god appear? And at this moment above the image, Li Hongjun spoke up. Mother *C King Human King, that is the insect god. You are the hope of the human race. You shouldn't fall here, hurry up and leave now. Go to the Hope City. There will be people there who can help you to unleash your fullest potential. Li Hongjun has just received the news from above and so he spoke up. In his opinion, a powerful being as such should not die here, no matter what. The biggest victory would be his survival. But, this single sentence was like a hammer that was sent down flying on the heads of countless human beings. The humans in the Starlight City started screaming out in fear. Initially, they had thought that this was hope. But right now, hope was about to leave them. If that were to happen, there would be only a single outcome for them: death. Don't leave us. We don't want to die here. But, some of the humans could understand Li Hongjun's point of view. He was right, there were only those few powerful beings of the human race. A single loss of any of them would be a huge blow for mankind. All of a sudden, the young man in the image spoke up. What for? It's just an insect god. That's just a puny, smelly insect. Chapter 873, Complete Destruction. Chapter 873, Complete Destruction. Tyrannical. Way too tyrannical. All the surviving humans had heard the tyrannical sentence. Just an insect god. Was this just? The insect god was so ferocious that the entire human race couldn't do anything to it. If a city was targeted by the insect god, the only fate awaiting it was death. But, to think that in the eyes of this mysterious young man, the insect god was just that. They did not know how much more tyrannical this young man could get. Highs. Lin Fan sighed out helplessly. Indeed, the vantage view was truly different when one was higher up in position. As for this so-called insect god before his very eyes, he could kill this thing over 100,000 times with just a single mere blink of an eye. Thump. At this moment, the insect god started moving its legs. A single stride forth caused the entire ground to quake out. In the eyes of the humans, that malevolent insect god was an invincible devil. Even a single look at it was enough to wreck all the nerves in one's body. Damned human. The moment the insect god opened his mouth, countless insect race beings dropped down from it. Within the mouth of that insect god, even more insect race beings were seen just squirming around. That single sharp hiss from it was just like the tune of the devil, causing all of them to feel really unsettled. How dare you kill my people? The insect god howled out as he sent out a sound wave that caused all the clouds in the world to scatter away. Hope City. Sir Commander, should we shut off the image broadcast now? The people under him were hard at work right now. In their eyes, this was a scene that should not be broadcasted out. Even if this mysterious young man were extremely strong, he would definitely not be a match for the insect god. While the insect god had not made that much of an appearance, its nefarious name was known to everyone far and wide. It was a sense of fear that no one could shrug off. We'll wait. The face of the commander was grim. He was more nervous than anyone else right now. The eyes of countless of powerful beings were all fixated on this scene before them right now. The insect god is unparalleled in might. Even if this mysterious young man is strong, there's no way he will be a match for the insect god. A powerful human being who is able to kill the kings of the insect race shouldn't be left to die there. There is no longer any hope for the Starlight City now. Right now, everyone was facing a dilemma in their hearts. Even though they could not bear to do so, they still struggled to peel their eyes open and face the screen up above. At this moment, Lin Fan was facing everything single-handedly. Even if it were the boundless insect race up ahead, they were still ever so insignificant in his eyes. If one had to talk about how terribly the living beings of the thousands of races were leading their lives, Earth would be the most terrible place that was suffering the most right now. Shing. All of a sudden, the void rippled. The insect god opened his mouth furiously and a surge of energy was channeled. All of a sudden, a black ball of light that was gathered in the mouth of the insect god, filled with an endless amount of destructive power. A gut-smashing power was being channeled right there. That's the destructive cannon of the insect god. When Li Hongjun caught sight of this, his heart skipped a beat. That was the ultimate move of the insect god. In the past, that extremely strong city was decimated under the might of this destructive cannon of the insect god and turned into dust. No matter how strong the opponents were, they wouldn't stand a chance at all. It's over. The Starlight City is definitely over. The insect god is way too strong. We humans have no way of fighting that at all. Countless people screamed out. Under the supreme might of the insect god, they had no heart to resist any longer. All the students of the schools gripped both their hands together tightly. From out of nowhere, a young, pretty female student screamed out. Mysterious young man, good luck. The moment this scream rang out, all the surrounding students began to chant the same. Good luck, good luck. That fella has no hope anymore. The insect god is an insect race being whose existence goes beyond SSS. He can even be considered as the god of the insect race. There's no way this guy is a match for him, a man said. Even though his face was solemn, he set out with a haughty look on his face. This was the top genius of the school. In this chaotic era, this was the time for the uprising of geniuses. As for this mysterious young man, he didn't look that far apart from them in age. Yet, the strength that he possesses was definitely worthy of their envy and jealousy. Pishu, Pishu. The moment this man finished his sentence, everyone turned their heads in a flush and glared at him. Their eyes were filled with boundless hatred. Shut up. This is the hero of mankind. You have no rights to say that. Scum, I was wrong about you. And to think that you're the #1 genius of the school. You're just a degenerate. At this moment, that man had turned into the butt of public criticism. Outside the Starlight City, the power of the insect god was getting enormously huge. Li Hongjun's eyes flashed with a look of fright. He hadn't gone up against the insect god yet. However, the amount of power that was given off by the insect god was enough to have him feeling fearful. Horrifying. This was way too horrifying. Ant-like human race. Go to hell. Boom. A jet black beam of light shot out from the insect god's mouth intensely. At that moment, the winds howled and the clouds surged. The entire world descended into a patch of darkness as the sinister power had everyone terrified down to the core. This is the end. Li Hongjun looked at everything before him with despaired eyes. It was too late for anything now. Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin. Under the appalled gazes of everyone, he lifted a single finger gently and tapped the void. Bam! So weak. Lin Fan spoke up. How could this be? Li Hongjun was totally stupefied by everything before him right now. It was as though he had just witnessed something absolutely horrifying. And all the other humans that stood before the large screens were rooted blankly on the spot as well. November LBJNN. A single finger. This. With the gentle stretch of his finger, Lin Fan had that apocalyptic power of the insect god stopped in its entirety. Time passed by the second and minutes. The pitch-black beam of light had dissipated by now. That menacing face of the insect god was replaced with one of fright. When he saw how that human was still standing there with no harm to him at all, a series of hisses screeched forth from the throat of the insect god. So strong. After everyone were silent for a moment, they burst out in cheers. In their eyes, this was simply way too amazing. To think that even such a strong insect god could not kill him. And, he had even used just a single finger to stop that blood-curdling move of the insect god. This was something that was way too tyrannical in the eyes of all the humans. Lin Fan smiled indifferently before floating down slowly from that gigantic sword. At this moment, everyone held their breaths, not knowing what this mysterious young man was trying to do. Even Li Hongjun was completely stumped at this moment. He looked at Lin Fan fixatedly. It was as though every single motion and action of Lin Fan was just a burst of impact for the masses. Insect god, hooey, even your insect ancestor has been killed by yours truly. What kind of shit do you even amount to? When Lin Fan's feet touched the ground, something even more rattling to everyone's hearts happened. With his feet as the center of impact, a series of shockwaves were emitted out, rippling out circles after circles in all directions. They then got even larger until all the insect race beings were covered within it. Bam, bam, all of a sudden, the world's most terrifying event happened. As though they had been dealt with some tremendous force, the bodies of all of the insect race beings suddenly started exploding out. They turned into dust that was scattered out into the entire world along with the winds. That boundless sea of insect race beings was utterly annihilated in the blink of an eye. The only one left standing all alone was the insect god. At this moment, everyone was frozen dead solid. Pop! The minds of every single human beings in the area were wiped blank at this very moment. All of the human beings who were watching the live broadcast from the big screen elsewhere were equally dumbfounded as they froze up blankly. It was as though they had yet to take in what had just happened, slowly coming to a shocking revelation. Chapter 874, Slaying Everything. Chapter 874, Slaying Everything. I'm dreaming right now, am I not? Ah, that hurts. It really hurts. Damn it, this is not a dream. This is reality. How could this be? Where did all the insect race beings go? Why have they vanished in the blink of an eye? At this moment, everyone was completely stumped. That vast sea of insect race army that amounted to tens of millions had all vanished in a single instant, leaving only the insect god standing all alone out there. This was something that was absolutely horrifying for everyone. Hope City. The commander looked at the image on the screen blankly as he froze up. What just happened? Up till now, he could not figure out what had just unfolded at all. To think that the gigantic insect race army would vanish just like that. Sir Commander, there was an extremely monstrous power that shot out earlier, wiping away all the insect race beings clean. The vanishing of the insect race army definitely has a close connection with that mysterious young man. Or perhaps, it's better to say that the mysterious young man did it. The supervisor replied. At this moment, everyone in the control center was completely frozen. This can't be right. That's an insect race army that amounts to tens of millions. No matter how strong he is, he shouldn't be able to wipe them all out in the blink of an eye, right? But if that's not the case, how do we explain what just happened? At this moment, all the powerful beings in all the cities were gaping blankly at the large screens as well. For all of these countless people, this was an exhilarating moment. Ah, the insect race beings have been totally destroyed. Too strong. This is simply way too strong. Just who in the world is he? How could he possibly possess such strength? Messiah. The Messiah has descended upon us. ... Countless humans erupted out in cheers. They were so emotional right now that their hearts were about to pop right out of their throats. This was something that was way too invigorating. The human race has endured endless oppression from the insect race. But, with this present scene, it had countless of people feeling hope blossoming in their hearts. Lin Fan raised his head and placed his hands behind his back. Walking forth with a single step, he walked toward the insect god. As though he could not believe what had just happened before its eyes, the insect god was scared so badly that it stumbled back a step when he saw this human walking toward him. At this moment, Lin Fan was just walking over casually. When he arrived before the insect god, he raised his head. Insect god. Even though Lin Fan's voice was really calm, it was a voice of absolute horror for the insect god. The insect god hadn't expected for this human before him to be this strong, making all of his people disappear right before his very eyes. At that very moment, he could feel his connection with his people getting cut off entirely. Human. The voice of the insect god was hoarse right now and filled with fear. While he was the insect god in the face of these ant-like human beings, he knew that within the insect race, he was but a small little being. It was because there was a restriction in this world that the powerful insect race beings were unable to get through to this place. In the end, he then the strongest of this world because of that, and thus the god of this world. But right now, this human before him had gone far beyond his wildest imaginations. Strong, way too strong, so strong that he couldn't even fight back at all. At this moment, the insect god had an urge to cry. He truly wanted to chomp down and devour this human cruelly. However, he did not dare to. He knew that the other party would blow him up. Lin Fan raised his head, hands behind his back as he stood there, looking at the insect god ever so silently. At this moment, the insect god could feel an enormous amount of power being emanated out of that human. His knees made way and started wobbling. Before the dumbfounded gazes of everyone present, the insect god bent his knees and knelt down, prostrating before the human while shivering. HMPH. Lin Fan snorted coldly. All of a sudden, the insect god discovered in fear that a boundless amount of power was surging out at him. Bam! In a flash, the insect god, who had turned into a permanent trauma in the minds of mankind, was turned into dust. WE1. When Li Hongjun caught sight of everything before him right now, he felt his heart skip a beat. Unable to hold himself back, he yelled out. The insect god was dead. To think that the insect god would truly be dead. The countless of humans who were watching from the large screens cheered out as well. They were truly feeling too excited in their hearts right now. When Lin Fan heard the cheers of the Starlight City, he shook his head. Seemed like they were really happy, Immediately, Li Hongjun came before Lin Fan's face and looked at him with reverence. Mother *C King Human King. No vel B in .C Om. HMMs. Lin Fan nodded his head before pointing out with his finger. All of a sudden, the entire world changed. What's he doing? This was the thought that entered everyone's minds. They did not know what this hero of mankind was doing. But all of a sudden, something absolutely shocking happened. The entire world was suddenly filled with sword wills, as though it had turned into a world of swords. One after another, these sword wills floated up in the void in a dense cluster, formidable enough to rattle one's heart. All of the humans who had cultivated the Tao of the sword could feel a desire to bow down in the face of these sword wills. In their eyes, this was none other than the god of swords. Compared to that boundless sea of sword wills right now, they were nothing but children playing around. To think that the insect race would have caused Earth to turn as such. They deserve nothing less than death. Lin Fan moved his finger as the sword wills streaked out. One by one, they dove into the void and bolted out towards all directions. Some of the cities were facing an invasion by the insect race right now, and the humans within were struggling and fighting back. Against the insect race, they realized that they were truly way too insignificant. Some of them even had a feeling of despair spreading out in their hearts. But all of a sudden, the void shimmered as the boundless sword wills penetrated through. In the blink of an eye, countless of insect race beings were slain. At this moment, everyone was startled. They did not know what had just happened. In the innumerable cities out there, they were experiencing the same thing while facing the incoming destruction from the insect race. Some of the stronger insect race beings were hidden somewhere in the depths right now, discussing how to annihilate the human race. But out of nowhere, the void rippled as sword wills burst forth, killing everything. In the eyes of Lin Fan, Earth was just a single tiny planet. In a single breath, he could take everything under him. Even a single slight movement would not be able to escape his sight. While there were many of those insect race beings in terms of quantity, they were just way too weak in the eyes of Lin Fan. Lin Fan faced the entire world right now. Yours truly is the mother ** Sea King Human King. I have just cleaned up the entire world of the insect race. After he finished this sentence, he floated up gently into the air. Mother ** Sea King Human King. Li Hongjun yelled after him, wanting to find out more things. But in a flash, Lin Fan's figure had already disappeared from the face of the world. For all the beings of the human race, this was just like a dream that had happened. Mother * Sea King Human King. This was a name that everyone would always remember in their hearts. The Mother * Sea King Human King was truly the Mother * Sea King Human King. Hope City, Control Center. Sir Commander, all the cities which were being invaded by the insect race are all safe. According to reports, the insect race beings were all wiped out by a single sweeping sword will. Sir Commander, it's the same over at this side as well. Reporting in, there is suddenly no energy feedback coming from the base of the insect race. When the commander heard the reports of his men, he could only stand there in a daze and was unable to recover from it for a long time. Had the insect race truly been slain all like that? Just where in the world did this Mother * Sea King Human King hail from? But by now, Lin Fan had long arrived at the depths of the will of Earth. Chapter 875. All of the endless legends were real. Chapter 875. All of the endless legends were real. Yours truly was right. This bloody Earth did not give birth to any heaven's will at all. Otherwise, how could the human race be this weak? Lin Fan looked at everything before him. The space was dusky, and gray currents were seeping out all around a small little void. Within that void was a spherical light ball that floated gently. On the surface, there were mysterious runes that were etched on it while faintly giving off an aura of the heaven's will. On the inside, the heaven's will was still slowly gathering and brewing. If Earth truly had a heaven's will, the power level of the human race would have skyrocketed back when the insect race descended down. How else would there be a situation where the humans were being oppressed so badly? But, even though the Earth hadn't given birth to a heaven's will yet, to Lin Fan, there was still something really odd about the Earth. For it to be able to block out powerful beings from coming in, just that capability alone was something one could not deny. Lin Fan's cultivation state right now was at the Divine Celestial Level 10, Eternal God State. But, he was no ordinary Eternal God State being. Therefore, breaking through this barrier was naturally something he could do with ease. And right now, the only thought on Lin Fan's mind was to cultivate the entire Earth under him. This creator tag was something that had followed him for a long time now. And yet, he had only cultivated a single world under him. That was something pretty awkward now. Since Earth hadn't even given birth to a heaven's will, cultivating it would be something of extreme ease for Lin Fan. Instantly, a power of refinement burst forth, wrapping around the entire earth. And just as Lin Fan thought that everything was coming to completion, numerous black god chains burst forth from that ball of light all of a sudden. These god chains were extremely thick, and brought with them a boundless aura. They caused Lin Fan's power of refinement to dissipate immediately. There seems to be a problem. Lin Fan's face changed, feeling somewhat incredible. This was something that had shot right through Lin Fan's expectations. How in the world could something like this happen when he was trying to cultivate earth that had no heaven's will? Holy FCK, playing mysterious and all. Yours truly will just have to see how mysterious you can get. Lin Fan was indignant right now. If he couldn't even cultivate a single earth that had no heaven's will, wouldn't he just be a laughingstock if word of this were to get out? Reform Buddha Lord, Great Buddha's light of purification. Power of the Creator. At this moment, Lin Fan's body burst forth with 3 massive powers that struck out at these god chains. Yours truly refuses to believe that I can't cultivate you. Boom! A loud explosion boomed out as the entire void exploded out. That grey current went all berserk in a sudden. The god chains started emitting out a series of godly glows and blocked out all 3 of Lin Fan's massive powers. This was pretty tyrannical now. Your Buddha Lord truly refuses to believe that he can't even reform a single ball of light. The reforming Buddha Lord came forth from the paradise and rolled up his sleeves, all ready to go for a good fight. Just get the hell over. Lin Fan did not say anything more and pulled the reforming Buddha Lord into the space immediately. Bloody hell, this mother CKER was still putting on an act at such a critical moment. Couldn't he see that even with the tremendous strength of yours truly still could not take down the other party? What fart use could a mere Buddha Lord such as him be? But right at this moment, something that shocked Lin Fan happened. That bright ball of light started spinning rapidly as a black vortex appeared in Lin Fan's face. What? Lin Fan was stunned, not knowing what was going on. All of a sudden, a crazy suction force appeared and burst forth. Holy FCK, Lin Fan's body could no longer hold steady as he was sucked into it. Right now, Lin Fan was a divine celestial level 10, eternal God state powerful being. But, to think that he could even stand firm against a vortex. If word of this were to get out, would anyone believe it? When Lin Fan next opened his eyes, he checked out his surroundings warily. All of a sudden, his face changed into one of disbelief. Just where in the world is this? Lin Fan had not expected for Earth to be this odd and have a place such as this. His surroundings were pure chaos, yet there wasn't even a single peep of sound, nor was there any spirit chi. It was as though this was just an empty void that didn't exist. Shing! At this moment, the void shimmered. Lin Fan stumbled backward, thinking that something was about to happen. But to his surprise, a tombstone appeared before his face. Tomb of the Great Sage, equal of heaven of the monkey race. Holy FCK, isn't this just Sun Wukong? This is some Mother Sea King Big SH*T. Lin Fan was stunned and had a strange look on his face. Just what in the Mother Sea King world was all this? And just as Lin Fan was ready to examine it properly, the void started trembling out once more. In front of Lin Fan's very eyes, more tombstones started appearing. November LBJNN. When he saw the names on the tombstones, his mind was practically blown away. Tomb of Nuwa, the mother goddess of the snake race. Tomb of Lucifer, god of the wings race. Tomb of Rulai Buddha of the Buddha race. Tomb of King Kua Fu of the giant race. Tomb of Father Huang Zhong of the succubus race. Tomb of ancestor god Ying Long of the dragon race. Lin Fan blinked his eyes, feeling that everything was so damn bloody strange. All of these dense clusters of tombstones lined the void. But all of a sudden, Lin Fan's face changed as though he had just discovered something shocking. Underneath these tombstones were many black tombstones. All of these tombstones gave off an endlessly sinister aura of bloodlust, gloom, and cruelty. Lin Fan focused his attention over. When he caught sight of the text on the tombstones, he nearly jumped right where he was. Tomb of the Dimension Devil Yang Mei of the Ancient Race. Tomb of the Death Devil Shi Yan of the Ancient Race. Tomb of the Extreme Yin Devil Yin Ming of the Ancient Race. Tomb of the Extreme Yang Devil Yang Zhou of the Ancient Race. An endless number of devils ranging from soul devils to destructive devils. All of these dense tombstones had Lin Fan gulping down his saliva. I seem to have stumbled across someone outrageous. Lin Fan did not fear the heavens or the earth. But at this moment, he could feel himself almost jumping at the sight of this many tombstones. They were not bloody taking him for a ride now, were they? Weren't these the 3,000 devils? The characters of the legends told on Earth. All of a sudden, Lin Fan's mind turned towards a single devil. If this were also a devil of the ancient race, he would have really FCKED it up big time this time around. Lin Fan looked around. Out of the black tombstones, there were a total of 2,999. There was one short. He then looked at the tombstone right on top. All of a sudden, he found the one he was looking for. Tomb of the Power Devil Pangu of the ancient race. Just what the FCK is going on right here. Why the hell are there so many tombstones? Aren't these all things that should belong in the legends? Why the hell are they all connected with the ancient race? At this moment, Lin Fan felt an extremely huge headache. Back when he had crossed over to the Xuanwang world, Lin Fan had always thought that he was living in a parallel universe. But right now, he realized that something was off. There were so many hidden powerful beings on Earth. And at the same time, all of the legends and tales were always told with such fluency that they had always seemed to be real. If that were the case, there was only a single possibility right now. Everything must have been real. Holy FCK. A single look and one can tell that all of these are invincible characters. If they were to all awaken just like that, wouldn't yours truly turn into a weak chicken in their faces? No please. At this moment, Lin Fan could not be bothered with anything else other than his own safety. He had finally gotten to a divine celestial level 10, eternal god state after much difficulty, and was at a point where he could kill any gods that stood in his path. But all of a sudden, when Lin Fan caught sight of all of these sick tablets, even that gut of his could barely handle everything right now for a moment or so. Suddenly, the tombstones vibrated. It can't be, right? Lin Fan could only stand there watching blankly, feeling as though he had just done something absolutely outrageous. But to be honest, what the FCK did he even do to begin with? Chapter 876, FC King with me. Chapter 876, FC King with me. Pishu, what is happening? Lin Fan was just completely stunned by this situation before him. They were just Mother F***C King playing with him. All he saw was a single tombstone that vibrated violently before bolting up into the sky, diving straight into that endless void. Lin Fan wanted to stretch out his hands to stop it. But all of a sudden, he stopped himself. His little guts were feeling ever slightly so unnerved, and he did not dare to act too brazenly. All of these tombstones were shrouded with a boundless amount of power. Just the aura alone was enough to rattle one's hearts. Lin Fan was truly afraid that some *T might just blow over if he were to try and stop it. ROARR. All of a sudden, those sinister-looking tombstones emitted a series of ghastly black mist. In a split second, an illusory figure appeared above the tombstone of the death demonic god Xian of the ancient race. This illusory figure was shrouded with a deathly aura, as a long black robe was draped all over its body while it wielded a black scythe. Above the scythe were black thunderbolts that were coiling around the blade that possessed a boundless aura of death. Gulp. Lin Fan swallowed his saliva. Such a formidable amount of power. To think that it could possess such a formidable might even despite being dead. If the true body were to descend down, wouldn't yours truly's anus be pierced through with a huge hole? Following tightly behind, illusory figures appeared on top of the various tombstones. All of these illusory figures started spreading out and appearing one after another, forming a dense crowd of them. All of them were top-tiered powerful beings with extremely fearsome auras. With this many of them, the might that was exuded was even more horrifying. Step. Lin Fan stepped back a couple of steps involuntarily with a look of astonishment. Right now, he felt as though he was being crushed by a gigantic mountain. He tried checking out the cultivation states of these illusory figures. However, there was no indication at all. This was truly the first time he was meeting with something as such. Lin Fan could feel his little heart pitter-patter. He was so nervous right now. All of a sudden, the tombstones above started to vibrate out and illusory figures suppressed out one after another as well. It was as though they were suppressing these 3,000 demonic gods of the ancient race. Boom. The void broke open. Lin Fan opened his eyes wide and watched everything before him. His finger twitched a little, and he could feel two tremendous forces opposing one another as though they were fighting for something. Just what in the world is going on here? Why does it seem like something's off right now? Lin Fan's face changed, sensing that things were getting bad. All of a sudden, a black streak of light tore through the void. This black light sliced through the entire world and pierced over. Lin Fan could feel the hair at the back of his body raising. It was as though his little life no longer belonged to him himself. November LBJNN. Heaven and earth smelt. Lin Fan instantly hid within. Boom. The heaven and earth smelt vibrated as though it had just received a huge blow. At the same time, Lin Fan checked out the situation around him warily. All of a sudden, a shriek rang out, scaring the bejabbers out of Lin Fan. Could it be that these super powerful bosses were not dead? At this moment, right before Lin Fan's eyes, the death demonic god Xian of the ancient race gently raised the scythe in his hands as though he was observing everything before his eyes keenly. This wasn't the situation he had expected. Human, a voice permeated over. However, this voice was ever so sinister and eerie in the ears of Lin Fan. It seemed to be coming from beneath those black robes. Lin Fan opened his eyes wide and took a look. For a moment, his entire mind went blank. At this moment, Lin Fan even had the heart to just commit suicide. What in the mother f*** king world was this, and what was up with these fellas? Weren't they already dead? How come they were able to talk? And, even their tombstones were already crafted out. What else did they want? Not going out. Definitely not going out. Before Lin Fan could make out just what in the world was going on, he would definitely not head out and put on an act. After the fall of countless eras, we have descended once more. Power demonic god Pengu, betrayal of the ancient race. Deserves death. Great sage equal to heaven, Rulai Buddha. Our battle has only just begun. ... Boom, countless black pillars pierced up into the air, striking at the tombstones of those utmost powerful beings of the thousands of races. A tear then appeared in the void as the tombstones of the 3,000 demonic gods of the ancient race bolted out in all directions before eventually vanishing without a trace. All of the utmost tombstones of the thousands of races started vibrating immensely as well before seeping into the endless void. All of a sudden, the entire world fell silent. All of those dense clusters of tombstones had all disappeared just like that, as though they were never there to begin with. What the FCK? Lin Fan was stunned as he blinked his eyes repeatedly. Seems like something big is about to happen. But, everything has happened way too suddenly, right? There's no room for anyone to react at all. At this moment, Lin Fan came out of the heaven and earth smelt. Towards everything he had just seen earlier on, he was completely rendered speechless. Everything was way too surreal. If he hadn't been here seeing it for himself, he would have thought that he was still dreaming. Lin Fan knew about many names on those tombstones. The great sage equal to heaven. Wasn't that the Monkey King? Since when did he turn into an utmost powerful being of the monkey race? And that Lucifer, wasn't he an angel? Why was he the utmost powerful being of the Wings race right now? What about the Lord of the Demon race? Why the hell was it Dijun? Wasn't the big ancient demon the king of the demon race? Holy FCK, changed. Everything has changed. And which camp does yours truly belong to then? Why the FCK didn't I see the huge boss of the human race just now? Everything aside, wasn't that Nua someone who was making humans? Why did she turn into the utmost being of the snake race? ... Big ancient demon, come on out, just who is this Dijun to your demon race? At this moment, Lin Fan yelled out. He was completely rattled by the scene earlier on. The big ancient demon had long been reformed by Lin Fan, and was now slowly going through his memories. Dijun, that's right, that's right. What do you know about him? Lin Fan asked. The big ancient demon shook his head, too far. He belongs to an age too far back that I can't even remember it properly. Holy FCK, Lin Fan was just speechless right now. This mother f***cker used to be the emperor of the entire demon race. If even he did not know who Dijun was, who else could Lin Fan ask? And furthermore, he did not even know where those tombstones had disappeared to. Boom, right at this moment, Lin Fan felt as though the entire voids was starting to vibrate. He could feel an immense suction power that was coming forth everywhere. Ding, infinite worlds opened up and the big era shall descend. System undergoing upgrade. Lin Fan, ... What the f***ck? Have the infinite worlds opened up just like that? Lin Fan was just completely lost for words right now. Everything was happening way too suddenly, wasn't it? He wasn't even prepared for anything at all. Purify. Without any hesitation, Lin Fan started working hard at cultivating the earth instantly. At this moment, no god chains were appearing. Therefore, for Lin Fan, cultivating the earth was something that had gotten much simpler right now. Ding, congratulations on cultivating earth. Title, Creator. The strongest title, requires cultivation of a fixed number of the thousands of worlds, 2 1,000ths. Lin Fan instantly kept the earth into his inner world. Right now, within Lin Fan's inner world, there was the earth and the Xuanwang world. These were the roots and foundations of the entire human race. Everything was under Lin Fan's control right now. All of a sudden, a mysterious amount of power surged right at Lin Fan and entered his body. It was as though it was trying to connect with the Xuanwang world and Earth. Ding! Discovered unknown power that's trying to connect with the Xuanwang world and Earth. Severing it. Towards this mysterious power, Lin Fan had no way of fighting back at all. Because of that, the system stood in immediately and severed the power entirely, ensuring the safety of the Xuanwang world and Earth. That was close. Phew, that was close. Thankfully, the system is bloody overpowered. Ding! Strongest system upgrade complete in order to prepare owner to conquer over the infinite worlds with even more tyranny. Ding! Ultimate mission activated. Conquer the infinite worlds. Lin Fan, is this thing FC King with me? Chapter 877, Descent of a New Era. Chapter 877, Descent of a New Era. At this moment, there was a huge change happening throughout the ancient saint world. The opening of the infinite worlds had come so quickly that everyone was caught totally unaware. It was the same for the utmost beings of the ancient race. The heavens' will had awakened. The remaining 5 utmost beings looked at one another with a stumped look on their faces. Why did this happen? Wasn't the opening of the infinite worlds supposed to be 3 months later? All of the utmost beings were feeling that there was something wrong about the situation right now. Lord Heaven's will, what is going on right now? The remaining 5 utmost beings felt that the timing of the infinite worlds opening up this time around wasn't quite right. At the same time, their earlier preparations for it were not exactly successful as well. The first wave of the insect race's descent was FCKED over by that damned mother *C King Human King. That caused the situation to go off course. And now that the infinite worlds had opened up so much earlier than planned, it was even more evident that something was not right. The Heavens Will did not reply for a long time. It was as though he was also slightly taken aback by the way things had developed. He was the Heavens Will of the ancient race, and wielded control over everything. Even the date of the infinite worlds opening up was something that only happened after he decided for it to. At this moment in the sealed grounds of the ancient race, the Fire-Water Empress had been immersed in her state of fire-water fusion. But all of a sudden, her eyes bolted wide open as she revealed a look of astonishment. How could this be? The Fire-Water Empress could feel an infinite amount of power surging through the void. It was as though some outrageous existence had decided to descend upon them. Indeed, the era is about to end. All of those existences have awakened as well. Right now, the intent of fire and water have fused completely. This was meant to kill the Heavens Will after it awakens. But, by the look of things now, seems like there's no other choice but to just make my leave first. Looking at the seal above her, the lips of the Fire-Water Empress curled into a smirk. With her waving her finger, the intent of fire and water burst forth ferociously. This intent of fire and water that has fused with everything, and encompassed every single living being within it. Instantly, it blew the seal apart completely. Boom! The earth quaked and the mountains trembled. All the unmatched utmost beings had a stark change in their expressions. Not good. The Fire-Water Empress has broken through her seal. All of a sudden, the 5 utmost beings appeared in the area. When they caught sight of the Fire-Water Empress, they could not help but cast a wary look at her. In their eyes, everyone in the infinite worlds were nothing but ants. But, this Fire-Water Empress before them was someone they had to be cautious about. The Fire-Water Empress who was floating up in the void looked over far in the distance. Immediately, the 5 utmost beings had her surrounded. Fire-Water Empress, you! One of the utmost beings started saying. The Fire-Water Empress raised her tender jade hands. You guys don't have to say anything anymore. This era no longer belongs to you guys, and you shall all fall from that high and mighty throne of yours before long. After saying this single sentence, the Fire-Water Empress disappeared from the spot instantly. This caused the 5 utmost beings, who were watching everything intently, to have their hearts skip a beat. They did not have any feeling at all. In fact, they did not even know how the Fire-Water Empress had managed to leave. How could this be? How could the Fire-Water Empress be this strong? Heaven's will, what the Fire-Water Empress has just said. What did she mean by those words? But all of a sudden, the void trembled. The faces of the 5 utmost beings changed once more, brazen. One of the utmost beings stretched out his hand and slapped out at that endless void. But in the blink of an eye, a black flash of light shot out that sliced over while tearing through the rivers of time and space. The body of that utmost being was instantly sliced apart, as an endless amount of death aura gushed out from that wound. Has the era changed? With black robes covering his entire body, the scythe that he wielded in his hands emanated an even more chilling aura. With just a single move, he was able to kill an utmost being. Who are you? The remaining 4 utmost beings looked at the other party with a face of fright. They could feel their hearts thumping heavily right now, feeling that everything was simply way too inconceivable. That was an utmost being. But he was killed just like that in a single strike. For all these utmost beings who wielded control over the entire ancient saint world, this was something they could not imagine at all. Shing, shing. Following closely behind, the void started to ripple out once more as a series of tombstones appeared one after another. The auras of these tombstones were vicissitudinous and vile. Compared to those utmost beings of the ancient race, it was practically pitting a child against an adult. To think that the first to awaken out of everything would be me, the death demonic god. The death demonic god looked at the dense clusters of tombstones around him and smirked coldly. Death demonic god, we are waiting for these fellas to revive. The era this time around shall end in our hands. Even if it's them, they will have no way of stopping it at all. ... All of a sudden, an endless amount of sinister voices permeated forth from those countless tombstones. The death demonic god twirled the death god scythe in his hands before looking up at remaining 4 utmost beings. He then looked up into the void. Why, your demonic god has already returned and you're not scramming over yet. The death demonic god reared his head into the sky and barked out. Just as the 4 utmost beings were still trying to figure out what was even happening, the entire void vibrated violently as a figure appeared all of a sudden. Lord Heaven's will. When the 4 utmost beings saw who it was that had appeared, they greeted respectfully. But something that had them thoroughly shocked happened. When the heaven's will of the ancient saint world caught sight of that figure, he was so scared that he was shivering uncontrollably. In a flash, he prostrated down beneath the other party. Death demonic god. The heaven's will of the ancient saint world was shivering non-stop right now as though he had just seen someone absolutely ridiculous. Heaven's will. Ha ha ha. To think that a single strain of impure chi could turn into a heaven's will. The horrifying palm of the death demonic god descended on the head of the heaven's will before fondling it gently as though he was petting a dog. At this moment, the last remaining 4 utmost beings were absolutely scared shitless. They had taken on a high position for a long time now and wielded control over the lives of thousands and thousands of races. But the change that has happened at this very moment was way too huge, so huge that they could barely accept it. The 4 of you ants, come over here. The death demonic god looked at the 4 utmost beings and beckoned with his hand. The 4 utmost beings looked at one another and eventually knelt down before the face of the death demonic god, capitulating to their new master. Ha ha ha. The death demonic god howled out in a long laughter as a thick aura of death burst forth from him. That alone caused the entire ancient saint world to quake. And at this very moment, the ancient saint world was starting to fuse with the other worlds out there continuously. The surface area of the ancient saint world expanded out endlessly. Thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, hundreds of millions of times. From the get-go, the ancient saint world was already immensely huge. But right now, it was even larger than before. With the linking up of the infinite worlds, a brand new world was formed. The laws and intents of the world began to skyrocket without a limit. Now, this is the final battlefield. This is the most glorious age right before the destruction of an era. We're all back now. The masters of this universe are still us. At this moment, the huge changes of the ancient saint world had everyone in a state of complete shock. At countless bases of the beings of the thousands of races, a crack tore open from the void as a tombstone descended down and was embedded right into the ground. Boom, boom, one after another, these mountain-like tombstones dropped down from the sky. As for all the beings of the thousands of races, they truly did not know what was going on. Chapter 878. Is this hypothesis true or false? Chapter 878. Is this hypothesis true or false? At this moment when the infinite worlds opened up, the evil lord who was taken down by Lin Fan like a dog started bursting out laughing wildly. Damned human, damned thousands of races, the chance has finally arrived. With the opening of the infinite worlds, my people shall descend and become the masters of this new era. Right now, the evil lord was hidden within some deep mountainous areas, and did not dare to come out brazenly most of the time. He could only slowly heal up his wounds. When the ancient saint world started trembling, the evil lord could already sense that the chance has come. All of a sudden, the body of the evil lord burst forth with an immense amount of power. Using his own powers as a medium, he opened up a passageway so that his people could come in completely. At this moment, the body of the evil lord was burning with fiery raging flames. Come on down. The new era has arrived. Boom. Using everything in his body, the evil lord blew open a passageway that connected beyond the world and slammed right into the void. Looking at how the tear was getting larger by the moment, the remnant consciousness of the evil lord started laughing out maniacally. My people, yes, we must kill the human race. Kill the damned human race. Right now, the person the evil lord hated the most was the Mother *C King Human King. If not for the Mother *C King Human King, he would have been living the time of his life right now. How could he be stuck in such an awkward state as such? Stop. All of a sudden, a frightful voice sounded out from the passageway. The evil lord raised his head in bewilderment, not understanding what had just happened. He did not think too much about it and said, "My fellow comrades, please help me seek revenge." Boom. The evil lord burned himself up entirely as all his essence, spirit, and vitality burst forth into the void at that moment. The passageway was getting bigger and bigger, and eventually, the evil lord disappeared. No, right before the evil lord disappeared, an even more vehement objection boomed out of the passageway. But, it was all too late. How could this be? Why have those horrifying existences awakened at this very moment? No, we can't head over. Not to the ancient saint world. No, evil lord, you brain-dead FCK. When the rulers of the outworld fiends noticed the terrifying aura of the ancient saint world, they were nearly scared out of their wits. This aura was extremely familiar, belonging to existences far from the distant past. The outworld fiends did not belong to any race at all. They had existed the moment living beings existed in the universe. For the outworld fiends, the ancient saint world from a long, long time ago was a place that they did not dare to step foot in. That was because the powerful beings within there were simply way too strong. Later on, all of those powerful beings suddenly vanished. That was something that had the outworld fiends heaving a sigh of relief. And, the heavens will and the utmost beings of the ancient race that had appeared later on weren't any bit scary for the outworld fiends at all. That was the reason why they had dared to invade so brazenly. But right at the moment the evil lord opened up the passageway, the rulers of the outworld fiends could feel this extraordinary aura. For the rulers, this was something that was all too familiar. Therefore, it had the rulers extremely unsettled. But right now, everything was all too late. That was because the evil lord had already opened up the passageway. And then, something that had the outworld fiends even more terrified happened. This new ancient saint world seemed to be pulling at the world of the outworld fiends as though it was trying to link them up together. This was a massive tragedy. Something was happening at the four great guarded grounds as well. The barriers that were guarding them shattered all of a sudden. For the guardians, this was something they did not dare to imagine. Ancient saint world. Lin Fan stood there, completely stunned. All of a sudden, Lin Fan was feeling a little despaired towards life right now. He had suddenly realized that the entire world has changed starkly, and was no longer the way he had imagined it to be. Just what in the world is going on? Why has everything changed as such all of a sudden? Lin Fan did not even know what to say at this moment anymore. The world has turned larger. It was thousands and thousands of times, no, probably even larger than that, compared to before. The world had changed. The world had truly changed. Even all the laws of the world seemed to have changed as well. It was as though they had turned stronger than before. FCK. In the past, no matter what, yours truly could be considered among the top 10 most powerful beings in the entire ancient saint world. But looking at the situation right now, with those 3,000 shishts before me, I'm not even in the top 3,000 anymore. Lin Fan was stumped. This was way too bloody much of a roller coaster ride. This was especially the case for the ultimate mission that was handed down by the system. That had Lin Fan at a complete loss for words. Conquer the infinite worlds. Conquer your mother's infinite worlds. In the past, there was only the ancient race to FCK over, and everything would be fine and dandy. What, now I have to FCK over everything? And I don't even know what the FCK those tombstones are, but they're definitely nothing good. At this moment, Lin Fan released his consciousness. He wanted to check the changes of this world right now. But all of a sudden, he could only sigh out. The world had changed. Given his current strength, he could only cover a small area with his consciousness. And, there was even new stuff that totally shocked Lin Fan. Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, the ground started quaking. A gigantic plant opened its mouth wide and chomped at Lin Fan. Divine Celestial Level 6. What the flying FCK? Even a Mother *C King plant has a FC King spirit now. Lin Fan hadn't seen a plant as such before. It was as though this was something that had suddenly appeared after the opening up of the infinite worlds. Punching out, Lin Fan fisted this plant to death immediately, then bolted up into the sky and flew into the distance. This whole world has changed. The general cultivation state of the entire world has risen on a whole. And there's a whole load of weird stuff that's suddenly appearing. Seemed like because the infinite worlds were combining together, the will of the entire world had gotten stronger, and could carry more load on it in terms of power. But this wasn't the end of the changes just yet. The infinite worlds were still fusing together, and Lin Fan did not know what would happen once everything was done fusing. At this moment, all he had was a huge headache. Everything had happened so suddenly that he was totally caught unprepared. And right at this moment, Lin Fan froze. He had a bad feeling of impending danger. Human. The moment Lin Fan heard this voice, his entire heart skipped a beat. He turned his head over casually, and that single look had him nearly pissing his entire pants. You. When he caught sight of the figure, he could only stutter over it. That was the death demonic god. So, you're the human. Hooey. The sudden appearance of the death demonic god had Lin Fan's guts almost spilling out. That's right. Do you have anything you require? At this moment, Lin Fan put on an extremely nice attitude as he asked in a gentle tone. No matter the background of the other party, Lin Fan already knew that he was no match for the other party. And now that this other party had appeared right before his face, it was evident that he bore no good intentions. Your demonic god here has just awoken. I've heard that you've caused the ancient race to suffer quite a bit of loss. Therefore, I'm here to check out just what capabilities an ant like you can have. The voice of the death demonic god was extremely sinister. All of a sudden, his tone changed, but it's a pity that you've disappointed your demonic god here. That treasure that you used earlier to block the move of your demonic god, what's that? Come and present it over to your demonic god. What's that now? You're unwilling to. The tone of the death demonic god was starting to sound a little enraged. And no, how could I not be willing to? I, Lin Fan, revere the Lord Death demonic god the most. At this moment, Lin Fan felt that he would do best to pacify this death demonic god first, as he had suddenly thought of something extremely important. Most of the time, people who had been asleep for a long time would definitely be in a state of lowered intellect right after they had awakened. He wondered if this hypothesis was true. Chapter 879, I request a tag out. Chapter 879, I request a tag out. At this moment, Lin Fan summoned out the heaven and earth smelt. This heaven and earth smelt was something that came along with the system. Hell, if it could be considered as a treasure. Initially, it was just used for crafting weapons. But, because it was tough and firm, Lin Fan then decided to hide within it each time he bumped into an enemy attack he couldn't deal with. The moment the heaven and earth smelt appeared, Lin Fan discovered that the eyes of the death demonic god had opened wide. Now, the death demonic god's face was naturally hidden underneath that black robe, and there was no way one could make out his eyes. But Lin Fan guessed that this fella must have definitely opened his eyes wide. Now, Lord Death demonic god, what do you think of this treasure? Lin Fan asked. Good. The death demonic god spoke up. There was a hint of excitement in that tone of his. Human, you have performed well. How about submitting under your demonic god here and becoming my underling? With your demonic god watching over you, there will be no one who will dare to mess with you in this entire world. The death demonic god spoke up. The moment Lin Fan heard this, he blinked his eyes. Become your mother's underling, he thought. But, in Lin Fan's opinion on the other hand, since the death demonic god could say out words like these, he was definitely an existence whom Lin Fan could talk things over with. Lin Fan's mind started pondering over it. He had to come up with a good plan. To be able to become an underling of the death demonic god. This is such a privilege. Lord Death demonic god, do you eat spicy gluten? Lin Fan hurriedly entered the earth in his inner world and searched for the most amazing delicacy on earth, the spicy gluten. Bloody FCK, Death demonic god. Yours truly is going to mess with you good and proper today. Lin Fan cursed in his heart. He then started infusing a large amount of twisted medicine into that spicy gluten. Spirit of Bigra, refine. He refined till its most intricate state, and had it fused with the spicy gluten. Ding! Congratulations on creating a pack of Bigra spicy gluten. Spicy gluten, the face of the death demonic god was surprised, not knowing what this was. By now, Lin Fan had successfully created that pack of spicy gluten, and his heart was filled with an unlimited amount of hope. He had to steady this. This time around, he had to hold real steady. That's right, This is the spicy gluten that's said to be the most delicious through all legends. This is something I've accumulated over many years. Lin Fan took out the spicy gluten. Those sticks of spicy gluten emerging one after another looked so seductive. Looking at these seductive spicy glutens, even Lin Fan could not help but gulp down his saliva. But, when he thought about the effects of these spicy gluten, he forced himself to stay calm. As long as this death demonic god ate the spicy gluten of yours truly, things would truly get fun then. He could then hide within the heaven and earth smelt before releasing the big ancient demon for them to have a good poke at one another before he collected the returns of the fight. And, if this death demonic god could be killed, his cultivation state would definitely skyrocket off the charts. By then, hell, he'd be damn great. Even though he was a divine celestial level 10, eternal god state being right now, compared to these demonic gods and whatnot, there was still a world of a difference. But, as long as he could kill a single one, things would be easy to deal with later on. Delicious spicy gluten. At this moment, Lin Fan seemed to have heard the sounds of saliva being slurped down. But, he took it as a figment of his imagination and did not put it to heart. Give it to me. The death demonic god stretched out his hand. Indeed, he's got a low intellect. In Lin Fan's opinion, powerful beings such as this death demonic god would normally be high and aloof, and would kill over a single disagreement. How else would they talk to him as peacefully as right now? Taking the spicy gluten in his hands, the death demonic god tore open the packaging and took out a single stick. He sniffed at it before looking around. At this moment, the hands of the death demonic god which were hidden beneath the white robe pulled up the black robe that was covering his face slightly, revealing his chin. Lin Fan was stunned, feeling somewhat taken aback. When he saw that snow-white sharp chin, he had a bad feeling about this. How could this be? Isn't this the FC King death demonic god? In Lin Fan's mind, this was supposed to be an extremely ugly and horrifying existence. But at this moment, Lin Fan was starting to realize that everything was completely different. This death demonic god was completely different from what he had imagined. This was a chick, even though he could only see her chin right now. Based on Lin Fan's many years of experience, he could make out her entire face with just this chin alone. Pink lips. There were 2 pointy teeth on each side of her mouth as she placed that red-hot spicy gluten into her mouth and nibbled on it gentle. Lin Fan gulped down his saliva in a huff. Wrong. This was definitely wrong. Lin Fan wanted to say something. But just at this moment, he had to swallow his words back. How is it? He asked carefully. At this moment, the death demonic god released the grip on the side in her hands as she peeled over the black robe that was covering her head, revealing a bright head of red hair that was akin to a burning sun. When Lin Fan caught sight of the face of the death demonic god, his little heart started thumping furiously. FCK me. It was truly as he had imagined. But this wasn't right. The death demonic god of the ancient race should look like the ancient race beings as well. How could she possibly look like this? Yes, not bad. Your demonic god is pleased. All of a sudden, the voice of the death demonic god changed. That sinister voice from earlier on had disappeared entirely. It was as though everything she had said earlier on was modified by a machine. At this moment within the paradise, the big ancient demon had long received Lin Fan's notifications and was ready to go for a big round of FC King up with this death demonic god. The big ancient demon had already seen himself as the object of one's pent-up frustrations to be vented after the effects of Bigra. Even though the big ancient demon was of the demon race, he wasn't a casual person as well. In his opinion, this death demonic god must definitely be some ugly skeleton or perhaps some creature with an extremely hideous face. But, at this moment when he caught sight of the face of the death demonic god, the big ancient demon could no longer hold it in. Master, let me do it. Even though I, the big ancient demon, am royalty within the demon race, I am willing to sacrifice myself for the noble ambitions of my master. The big ancient demon said while his eyes flashed with a sharp glint. That red-hot hair, those exquisite features. Bloody hell, if someone else were to tell Lin Fan that this was the death demonic god, he wouldn't have believed it at the death of him. When he heard the words of the big ancient demon, Lin Fan coughed gently. It's all right. Yours truly has given it a thought earlier on. You have suffered enough for me, big ancient demon. It's better for me to face this problem myself personally. It's not enough. Not enough, master. I'm all willing. Let me do it this time around. The big ancient demon yelled. Lin Fan did not give the big ancient demon any chance to say any more as he closed his paradise shut immediately. The situation later on would definitely be intense. But, Lin Fan had already made up his mind. November LBJNN. If I don't enter hell, who would? Even though this death demonic god might be terrifying, he was the hero that was going to save the world. If he couldn't even endure something like this, how was he going to continue down this harsh path in the future? As time slowly slipped by, Lin Fan just stood there silently watching. By the time the death demonic god ate the last stick of spicy gluten, Lin Fan knew that what had to happen would eventually happen. Yes, and right at this moment, the face of the death demonic god was starting to change ever so slightly. This was the effect of Bigra. Human, you are decent. Your demonic god is very pleased. From now on forth, you shall provide your demonic god with more of this spicy gluten thing. Your demonic god will not treat you poorly. The death demonic god could feel a ridiculous lust that was burning up within her. Yes, yes, Lin Fan nodded his head silently. At the same time, he was all prepared. At this moment, Lin Fan suddenly thought of a phrase. Let the thunderstorm come forth ever more ferociously. But all of a sudden, Lin Fan was starting to discover that something wasn't right with the situation. Lord Death Demonic God, what are you doing? Lin Fan was still in his imagination when he realized that the Death Demonic God had pointed out with her finger, causing the void to vibrate out. Hinges that were made out of the law locked all four limbs of Lin Fan tightly. Huff, huff. The Death Demonic God was breathing out heavily right now as though her frame of might was starting to get blurry. She wielded the Death God's scythe in her hand and transformed it. All of a sudden, the scythe turned into a long black whip. This. Not good. She's bloody wanting to abuse me. Lin Fan started to get frantic as he struggled furiously. But no matter how strong Lin Fan was, he could not get out of this situation at all. I request to tag out. I request a change of person. At this moment, Lin Fan yelped out. Bloody hell, big ancient demon, come on out. Piok, a black streak of light flashed. Human, you've filled your demonic god here with an insatiable lust to train you up. You're going to belong to your demonic god now. The eyes of the death demonic god shone with a weird glint. That exquisite face of hers let out a deranged look as well. Holy Mother Cker. Yours truly is regretting it now. Ah, ha 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 ha. Chapter 880, Toy Your Mother. Chapter 880, Toy Your Mother. That shameful voice of Lin Fan rang out across the entire world. This was a form of humiliation and wasn't something that Lin Fan could have ever imagined. Thinking back into the past, Lin Fan had trained up countless existences. Each time when he personally wielded the whip and slapped down on the bodies of those powerful beings, he would feel an immense sense of satisfaction. But, to think that things would have reversed and he would be tied up to be trained up by someone else right now. This was something that was absolutely inconceivable for him. Death Demonic God, you had better not, Lin Fan yelped out left and right. Each time he felt that black leather whip humiliating his body time and again, his heart would be filled with an immense pain. On that pretty face of the Death Demonic God was an excited look she was maintaining. Every single whip was venting out a part of the lust in her heart. In Lin Fan's eyes, this Death Demonic God, who was bewitched by lust, was nothing more than a perverted girl. And, it was at this moment that Lin Fan truly regretted. Had he known this would happen, he would have had the big ancient demon come forth and replace him. If anyone else were to catch sight of this, where would he hide his face from now on forth? Piok. While the whips came onto Lin Fan's body, the pain came into Lin Fan's heart. Ding. Eternal God Body Experience Points plus 100. FCK my life. Lin Fan was close to breaking down right now. Given the strength of the Death Demonic God, every single whip should be causing him a pain that could kill him over back and forth. But right now, the Death Demonic God did not seem to be using too much strength, as though she was just toying with him slowly. The power that came forth with every single whip was neither strong nor weak. There were barely any experience points to be gained from it. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the tip of the whip curled into a hook and something that startled Lin Fan happened. Shred! His shirt was opened up, revealing the tender body below to the world. Holy FCK! Save me! Lin Fan yelled out loudly. This time around, he had truly met with a real pervert. Was the whipping not enough that she wanted a bare body torture now? Big Sister Death Demonic God, to be doing something like this under broad daylight, this isn't good. Lin Fan shouted out while struggling. The way the situation had turned out had gone completely beyond Lin Fan's expectations. Right now, Lin Fan's physical body state was already at a divine celestial level 10, eternal God state. But even then, his entire body covered in redness, with lines after lines of whip marks. How could he face anyone now? Ha ha ha. When the Death Demonic God caught sight of Lin Fan's body, she burst out laughing wildly, as though she was exhilarated on seeing this sight. Lin Fan felt that he had honestly just unleashed the unique potential of the death demonic god entirely all by himself. Spicy gluten. Eat his mother's spicy gluten. Lin Fan was truly regretting right now. Of all things, why did he have to make her eat spicy gluten? And, one that was bloody infused with the spirit of Bigra to boot. Wasn't he just courting death? Spirit of Bigra, bloody hurry up and release your poison away. Lin Fan yelled in his heart. But at this moment, the spirit of Bigra was equally helpless. Old bro, there's no way of releasing it. That is where all my essence lies with an unbridled might. Seems like you can only endure this silently. Looking at everything before him, the spirit of Bigra could feel his heart palpitating. Everything was so damn intense. And at the same time, the big ancient demon was feeling relieved with teary eyes. His master was truly way too good to him. To think that he would choose to endure such pains for himself. Even though the dignity of the big ancient demon had been trampled upon by Lin Fan countless times, this was still a situation that the big ancient demon could not find himself coming to terms with. There was a devilish glint that shone within the death demonic god's eyes while her lips were curled up, looking exceptionally nefarious. Badump. Lin Fan's little heart was thumping away furiously. He churned out the entirety of his powers that were as vast as the oceans, but it was all to no avail. The strength of the death demonic god was simply way higher than Lin Fan's. There was no way he could break free of these chains. 9-5 legendary brick, that was useless now as well. He couldn't even get it out to work. Lin Fan thought through all the ultimate moves he had. But, he discovered that none of them could do jack's tea right now. At this moment, Lin Fan had an urge to cry. Was he really meant to just suffer the abuses of this perverted death demonic god today? Suddenly, his mind turned towards the Fire Water Empress. Even though she was tyrannical as well, at least she was gentle about it. Holy FCK. No, all of a sudden, Lin Fan realized that the black leather whip seemed to have a life of its own as it wrapped around Lin Fan's pants. It was as though it was going to strip Lin Fan naked at any moment now. Death demonic god, please don't do this. If you do this, you will have to take responsibility for it. I am the mother *C King Human King. I can FCK once per day, and each time I FCK takes an entire day. You'll definitely have a bad time later on. Lin Fan howled out. He could not care about anything more right now as he proclaimed the thoughts in his mind. But on the other hand, the death demonic god was just laughing out loud right now. Good, good. At that moment, Lin Fan could make out the pink tongue of the death demonic god licking her lips. His heart skipped a beat. FC King Hell, he had met with an old-timer right now. Save me, molest, someone's going to die from this. Lin Fan yelped out left and right. He definitely had to safeguard his final line of defense. Slip, slip, slip. Lin Fan jerked his eyes open as he realized that his pants were slowly being pulled down. His face changed. He mustn't let this carry on. Holy FCK. And no, please don't strip any further. Any more and my little brother will be revealed. Lin Fan cried out in his heart. Had he known that this would be the case, he wouldn't have even thought of using that move of his even at the death of him. Right now, the spirit of Bigra was truly too shish tty. In the past, no matter who it was, after they popped in some Bigra, they would definitely start poking the ground ferociously with all their might. But, things were different now. They were no longer poking the ground. Instead, they were just unleashing all the lust within their bodies. And, this death demonic god had even invoked her queen whipping style. And, who was the victim? None other than him himself. No, Lin Fan howled out. All of a sudden, a trail of long hair blocked Lin Fan's vision as a fragrant aroma found its way into Lin Fan's nostrils. All of a sudden, Lin Fan let out a shameless shriek. He had suddenly realized that his little brother was being gripped by something. It seemed hot and steamy, yet cold and moist at the same time. At this moment, a voice found itself into Lin Fan's ears. When he heard the voice, Lin Fan was stunned, as though he had just seen something absolutely unbelievable. Xian, a few eras have passed and now you're even thinking of touching my exclusive property. This voice was crisp and clear like the music of the heavens. However, it was filled with a boundless amount of authority. Fire Water Empress. When Lin Fan saw who it was that had arrived, his heart froze. He then turned his sights downwards. The tender hands of the Fire Water Empress was gripping directly onto his little brother, and had caught onto that black leather whip that was above it. Creak. As she used a little bit of strength, the black whip shattered and was turned into stardust that floated out before the face of the death demonic god, before turning back into the death god's side. Loosen up. It hurts. It hurts. Lin Fan realized that the Fire Water Empress was increasing the strength of her grip. It was as though he could have them bursting if she used any more strength. HMPH. Remember this. You are the exclusive property of your Empress. If I ever catch you betraying your Empress will definitely squish it into exploding. The Fire Water Empress turned her head and glared at Lin Fan with those beautifully breathtaking eyes of hers. It was as though she was warning him that she wasn't joking. Don't you get cocky now. When Lin Fan saw the face of the Fire Water Empress, he was momentarily indignant. He was the mother *seeking human king. How could he get suppressed by AB*TCH? November LBJNN. Even though this B*TCH was stronger than he wasn't going to be afraid. Oh ouch, ouch, pain, pain. Lin Fan had only acted tough for a single second when his entire expression changed as he yelled. HMPH. All of a sudden, the death demonic god roared out with a maddened snort as her eyes shone with an endless fury, Fire Water Empress. That is the toy of your demonic god here. Shing. All of a sudden, the world quaked as a long streak of light sliced up the entire world. As for Lin Fan, there was only a single sentence he wanted to say, toy your mother.